Welcome to the Project with Sam and Lewis, the podcast that looks at projects throughout pop culture and history. I'm Sam.
And I'm Lewis.
And on today's episode, we are talking about the 7th episode of the Lazarus Project.
The penultimate episode.
I know, it's all kicking off now, isn't it?
Yeah, we obviously covered episode 6 last week and have gone straight back in for episode 7 because we're so looking forward to the end.
Yeah, the end of that last episode was like, it was a bit of a cliffhanger in a way.
It was.
It was, and this picks up pretty much straight from there, which
I'd say even a bit before.
It goes back a little bit, doesn't it? Yeah, very exciting stuff. Quite a heartbreaking episode in a lot of ways, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that element. I watched it like 4 days ago now, so as I read through the notes, I'll be like, oh yeah.
Okay, yeah. I watched it last night, so it's pretty fresh for me. We have got a couple other things to talk about as well. So if you want to skip ahead, we have got time codes in the episode description. We will be talking about, was it episodes 3 and 4 of She-Hulk?
3 and 4 of She-Hulk, yeah.
Dragon House episode 4.
Dragon House 4.
Power Rings 3.
Power Rings 3.
We've also could maybe talk about a bit of D23 news. There's a couple of like,
yes.
Well, I mean, Marvel-wise, it's pretty thin on the ground. Just generally, I think.
I don't think I saw any news from it. So
okay,
whatever
nice.
you bring will be
I've got a little
news
article here from Polygon, but I won't actually read it. I'll just use it as reference. But there you go, free plug for Polygon there. But yeah, if you want to skip straight to project news, you're very welcome. Oh no.
No, project news is next.
Personal projects, you can do so. If you want to skip to project news, you can do that as well.
Yeah, I can't imagine it's too much of a skip though.
Yeah, we'll just skip us talking. But yeah, how are you today, Lewis?
Yeah, not bad. It's a weird week. Like I've not been in Brighton since like 2 days ago, and tomorrow I'm off again. So this is my one evening here, and here we are.
Well, I'm glad you got to spend it with us.
Yes,
me and the listener. Pardon me. We don't have any guests on today, unfortunately.
No, we don't. That space of this room is looking very empty.
Yeah.
But how are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, busy-ish week. Not as busy as you, but just busy with work and stuff so far. And okay. I thought you just dropped something there. Yeah, busy-ish. Bit of a busy weekend just gone, so kind of reeling from that a little bit. Saw that D23 news. I was constantly noting down every little bit that came out. No, there was shit all news, to be honest. So but yeah, I'm good. I'm ready to talk about this episode. But before that, we've got a little segment, don't we, Liz?
Tiny little segment. Project news
with a tiny little beep.
So there was like 6 or 7 bits of news this week.
Yeah,
that could have turned up in other ones.
Previous ones,
but it's been a bit bare.
Right. Okay.
But I've cut it down to 2.
Nice.
Because I thought, we've got a lot to talk about anyway.
We do. Yeah.
So as usual, I've googled the word project and found some articles that interest. The first one is from IGN, and it's building on something we talked about last year.
Okay, I have no idea what this is. I'm excited to hear.
Bad news.
Oh, God, okay.
So last year we talked about the Korean game studio, Shift Up, announcing their game Project Eve.
Okay.
Due for a 20...
Was it like an MMO thing?
I think so, yeah. It's due for a late 2022 release.
Okay. We had it all in our diaries, ready to cover it.
Yeah, it's been pushed back to 2023.
Okay.
And even more heartbreakingly, they've changed the title.
No!
It's no longer Project Eve, it's now called Stellar Blade.
Wow. Is that a name of a protagonist or...
Just a really nice sword.
That's a stellar blade right there.
But they put out like a new trailer and stuff. But quite frankly, because they've changed the name,
I
don't care about it anymore.
Don't give a flying fuck about it anymore.
So yeah, it's also changing from being Xbox and PC to just a PS5 exclusive.
Okay, right.
So
which we don't have either anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Basically, I don't care about this anymore, but because it was all in our calendars and we're following it.
Absolutely.
Here is the Swiss
Having
release.
said that, if one of those other ones we're looking at, namely the James Bond game, Sorry, there was a fly there. If the James Bond game changes its name, I feel like we probably still have license to cover.
Oh God, you've been thinking about that all
I
week,
haven't
haven't
actually.
you?
That was off the cuff.
Yeah.
The Tuxedo Cup.
Oh, God. I mean, it's something big like that, and something that we would maybe interest in playing anyway.
We could do like FKA, formerly known as Project 007.
Yeah.
Although that will probably be PS5 as well, so it does depend on where we both stand with next-gen consoles.
That's true.
You're looking at my PS4 there.
Yeah. That's not a PS5.
No, it's not. It's a PS4 Pro.
I can imagine a PS5 being there, though.
The problem is, until they release a fully black one, I feel like it won't really fit with my,
Yeah, but people like it standing out, don't they?
Yeah, people are weird.
Would you have it standing up as well? Would you lay it down?
I think if it stood up, I feel like it would get knocked over. I don't have like a cat or a child or anything, but
you have friends.
I have friends and they love to knock stuff over.
Yeah.
So, yeah. You can put it on its side, but it comes with like a bit of plastic that goes underneath it because it's quite curvaceous.
Quite what, sorry?
Curvaceous.
Okay. So the other bit of project news I've got is, in opposite to the sad news about Project Eve, is coming to the Switch, PC, Xbox, and PlayStation early next year is survival horror Project Zero: Mask of the Lunar Eclipse.
Wow, what a title. Okay.
The fourth installment in the celebrated camera-based survival horror series.
You know what? I have heard of this, and I don't know why it's never come up before.
No, I was thinking that. And they say, needless to... Oh, this is from...
I think it's also comes under another name sometimes.
Right. So, Mask of the Lunar Eclipse was originally released for Wii back in 2008,
so it's
but
like
never made it outside of Japan.
It's one of them, yeah.
So now they're releasing it on Switch, Xbox, PlayStation, and PC early next year.
Right.
They say, needless to say, ghostly hijinks ensue with players needing to deploy the series' spirit-trapping camera obscura in order to ward off the island's supernatural inhabitants.
It is called Fatal Frame, or Zero in Japan, and Project Zero in Europe and Australia.
We are in Europe.
Or Australia.
So, yeah, maybe... maybe we can...
I mean, we can definitely look at one of them.
Take out Project Eve from the calendar, add in Project Zero.
Yeah.
Block out the entirety of early next year in your calendar.
I mean, we could cover one of them earlier than that, even if there's another version.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And we can get a feel for this big new release early next year.
If you want to spend £33.74, we can get Project Zero Maiden of Black Water, Digital Deluxe Edition PS4.
Well, that sounds like a great title.
Or you can get one for $3.99 that's called Back in 19... Anyway, we won't go through all this now.
$3.99 sounds good, though.
It does, yeah. Cool. No, that's good to know. There's another little... thing for us.
Another little thing, exactly. So yeah, we can add that on, and maybe early next year, if it hasn't changed its name, well, if it's the fourth part of the installment, I'd be surprised they changed the name. But
no, called just Zero,
like that character in Holes.
Yeah, Zeroni.
Yeah, what's
Hector?
Hector Zeroni.
Hector Zeroni.
Wow, great! Didn't you watch that fairly recently?
I watched that about 2 months ago. Yeah, that's why I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Zero, because he's got nothing in his brain. That's what they say.
Yeah,
because he can't read, which is not a very nice thing to say about someone.
No. They're not very nice kids. They're literally like in prison.
I mean, you can be nice and in prison.
Nope. Nobody nice has ever gone to prison. That's why they call it prison.
Okay, so is that the end of Project News for this week?
That is.
Woo! Which means we are now talking about The Lazarus Project, episode 7.
We certainly are. If you want to hear us talk in details about the cast, the writing, you're probably going to have to go back to episode 1.
Yes.
But I'll quickly run through. Created by Joe Barton, starring Papa Asidi, Tom Burke, Angela Mahija, Caroline Quentin, Charlie Clive, Lorne McDonald, Vinette Robinson, and Brian Gleeson, most of which we haven't seen for a while.
Yes.
Main ones, Papa Asidi as George, Angela Mahija as Archie.
Yes. That's pretty much it.
Caroline Quinton as Wes.
She's always popping up at some point.
Yeah. So the series, as I've mentioned, has got an IMDb of 7.1.
Yes.
What do you think this episode is?
So I know that you said the past few weeks that these last two episodes are some of the highest rated.
Yes, I did.
I can't remember where the last one fell, which was the third last episode or the last episode we covered. I think I overestimated where that last one fell. I think I gave it like 8.5 when I was guessing. Either way, I'm going to go with like 7.9 for this.
Still shooting high.
Wow.
It's 7.2.
Yeah, that's more like it, to be honest. To be fair, I went into this like, hell yeah. And I was like, it was pretty good. But it wasn't, I think the last one had such a strong ending.
Yeah, but it's often the way with the penultimate episode, 'cause it's always like putting the pieces in place for the finale.
I just feel like the way that the pieces were put in place for this episode was a stronger, like, pull.
I agree.
There was a lot happens in this episode, like especially towards the start and then towards the end. There's some middle bits that we'll probably go through a bit quicker, but yeah, it definitely asks some questions, but I don't know if it will be able to sufficiently answer those questions in the last episode.
That's fair.
I think that's my kind of worry going into this.
But the last episode is the highest rated episode, so hopefully it does answer all our questions.
Yeah. We still haven't ever concretely looked up whether there's a season 2. I think we heard something in the news at some point, but I haven't ever looked it up, and I feel like we wait until the end of the last episode to look whether it's been renewed, because we don't know where the story goes.
Exactly. It might end with the Lazarus Project blowing up and everyone dying.
And if we find out like, oh yeah, there's a season 2, it kind of, it taints your view of how the story is going a little bit, doesn't it?
But you mentioned it may not be as good as previous episodes. What happened in previous episodes?
So I'm going to try and keep this a little bit shorter, but generally speaking, it follows George, who was a app developer, and he has a girlfriend called Sarah. He gets recruited for the Lazarus Project, which is an agency which deal with mass extinction events by turning back time, in the words of Cher. Cher?
Yeah.
I was going to say Cher Lloyd then.
I was going to say Celine Dion, but no, it was definitely not Cher Lloyd.
Cher Lloyd. They use that as like a last ditch attempt if something goes wrong, nuclear war, that sort of thing. Shortly after joining, George, his girlfriend, dies in a road traffic accident.
Yep.
And he's really upset, but because the mission was a success that was running alongside it, there's no current kind of view to changing back time. And if the clock gets to the 1st of July, it is a checkpoint. And that means that if it got to the 1st of July, she would be dead permanently. So he goes bad, or breaks bad, as I kept saying.
Breaks bad.
He works along with ex-Lazarus agent Dennis Rebrov, to steal a nuclear bomb. He detonates it, not in the place he wanted, but the results are the same. And time is turned back. And along the way, he is kind of discovered in his little plot by his fellow agent Shiv, who's a much more experienced agent, who recruited Archie, who recruited George. So he's like a couple of levels higher than him almost. Shiv's after him in Romania, gets the drop on him, but George kills him, and he's like, don't worry, I'll bring you back when we loop. And he's like, I'll get you when you get brought back, when it all happens and stuff. Anyway, end of last episode, time went back, and everyone like wakes up at midnight or in their beds the next day or whatever. Shiv like wakes up and starts running with a gun to like go to George. George wakes up, is very happy to see Sarah because she's back to life. And we see Archie running to get Shiv, I think. That was the implication.
That was the last instruction by Wes.
Yes, Wes, who's the leader of the Lazarus, was like, 2 things. We're going to lose Rebrov because he was captured at that point, and we are going to lose Shiv, or Shiv's going to wake up and we're going to have to go see what happens, because they all love Shiv and they didn't want him to be a traitor, basically. So yeah, episode ended last time with a lovely Tame Impala song playing over everyone waking up and realizing that they were in some sort of trouble or had to go get someone. It was a very dramatic ending.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think that's fair. If you want a more
slightly better at it every time.
Yeah, well, you've only going to have one more to do.
Yeah.
If you want a more comprehensive summary, we spoke for approximately an hour on each episode.
Yes.
So if you go back to previous episodes, you can listen through.
I think the last episode was probably closer to like an hour and a half of talking about it, wasn't it?
Yeah, but there's a lot of project news and personal projects.
It's hard to tell where one thing ends and another begins. Yes, those time codes in the episode description. But this episode, as we're saying, kind of flashes back a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, so we start with we see the bit before in Romania where Shiv's driving after George.
Yeah.
It's kind of quickened up. They cut a bit here and there.
Yeah.
Shiv gets shot, and then we immediately see him wake up, and he goes, "Son of a bitch," and like runs out of his door.
So he wakes up at, we assume, midnight, right? Because they don't all wake up when it refreshes. I think some of them would wake up in the morning if they'd been deep asleep.
Yeah.
But he was just like in his chair. So I guess he'd like dozed off coming up to midnight, or he just sleeps in a chair like some weirdo. He gets up, grabs his gun, and
Shiv's definitely the type to make sure on the 30th of June each night he stays up late so that across the next year he'll be ready.
That's probably what it was. He was probably sitting up there.
And that's probably smart. They should all do that.
Yeah, George is in the middle of having sex with his girlfriend at the point.
If I was Wes, I'd have everyone in the office at midnight on the 1st of July.
That is a very good idea, and I'm very surprised that they didn't write that into this.
Because then...
I mean, it would have meant that all of this couldn't happen.
Because at like 12:30, they could be like, right, everyone go to bed.
No.
But... Yeah, no. I mean,
and have the next day off, because they all has the next day off anyway.
Yeah, so if if anything does go back, then they're all there ready to deal with it.
And it's like, including, pick up where they are.
Shiv would be there in Lazarus. They'd be like, "We've got you."
We got you. Lewis did a little gun motion. We got you. Hands up. Or they would have been like, "Shiv, explain yourself." And he would have been like, "Well, what happened was George was lying."
Yeah.
Yeah, and George is in bed. He's like very happy to see Sarah. We see Archie is, I think, calling Shiv. She's trying to get through to him, or is she calling George? She's running and calling someone, I think.
She's calling Shiv.
Yeah, and Shiv's just not replying, even though if he answered his phone, he could probably try and explain.
He's like, I've got shit to do.
Yes, and then George is like, "Sorry, Sarah, I know we were just having sex, but I need to leave because I've got something I need to do."
And Sarah's like, "I'm going to have a wank and sleep."
Yeah, she's like very chill about it, but I guess she's got no reason to be suspicious. He gets something which I think is a gun from like out of the kitchen.
He gets a gun from like a hidden drawer he's got in the kitchen.
Yeah, and then he goes, we see him leave the apartment, the flat, and then Shiv's coming in downstairs. And he's like sneaking in, and then he sees the lifts coming down, so he's ready at the lift.
Yeah.
Door opens, there's no one in the lift because George has learned something in his like years training. And and then George kind of sneaks down the stairs with his gun, and they're both pointing their guns at each other.
Yeah, it's a bit of a Mexican standoff there. And Shiv's like, "I've got ya." George is like, "I've already got away with this." Like, they already suspect you. They think it's you. If you kill me now, you're done for.
And he's like, I think Shiv says, "Are you going to kill me?" And he's like, "Everyone I've killed is alive. Like, that's not me. Like, I'm not going to do it." And he's like, "Well, you still did it." And I wrote down that funny exchange they have in a moment. But he basically says, like, "I know about Janet," because Janet was like an ex-agent that was being sent money by Shiv. It's very Heisenberg for a bit. Like he
gets really manipulative.
Yeah. It's quite funny when they're telling each other to fuck off. I wrote it all down because I thought it was funny. George basically just like puts his gun down. He's just like, "I'm going back upstairs. Like, I've won." And Shiv's like, "Fuck you, George." And then George is like, "I just wanted to save my girlfriend's life. Didn't have to be an arsehole about it." And then Shiv's like, "Grow up, you stupid prick." And George goes, "Oh, fuck off." And Shiv says, "No, you fuck off, you fucking dickhead." And he's like, "I'm a dickhead. You're a fucking dickhead." And he's like, "Look, I'm sorry." And it's like, it's a little fucking late for the second story. Yeah. And then George is like, he tries to manipulate him. He's like, "You don't even believe in the Lazarus anymore. Like, you're disillusioned. Like, why the fuck are you doing it?" I think he says, like, Janet had a pretty good life, just like off radar. Like, you can do the same thing.
Yeah.
Just like, I fucked your life a bit, but just go and enjoy it, kind of thing. And yeah, this is when Shiv points the gun, and George is like, "If you kill me, like, you'll look even more guilty." And I think Shiv is like, "Was it worth it?" And he's like, "Yeah," like, or he's like, "You got everything you wanted. Was it worth it?" And George just like walks off. And it's like, damn, like, that wasn't what I was expecting that exchange to be, really. I don't know about you.
Yeah, like, no, I was expecting like a big shootout all like the whole episode, like them being up against each other. But like,
it's like extinguished quite.
And it kind of makes sense how it plays out, particularly because they're in a Mexican standoff.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, well, what's Shiv gonna do now?
Yeah, I mean, he could have kind of not what you like incapacitated him and being like, I got like called into Lazarus, be like, I got him, like, I can prove. But I guess he can't, because we talked about last week, because everything turned back. There's no actual material evidence.
But there is the evidence that he's been sending money to Janet, which is against him.
Yeah, but is that enough to... Yeah, I suppose it's something that he shouldn't have been doing anyway, isn't it? So, but yeah, he goes back up, George, and just goes to bed. Sarah's already asleep. She's had her wank. She's
had her wank, gone back to sleep. Yeah, I wonder how long he was.
we get a thing a bit later with there's a time on a CCTV, and the time that they talk about is completely different. Did you notice that? There's a time in the lift. Well, I'll talk about it later, but I don't know if it's intentional or if it was just a mistake. But we see like a timestamp when he's in the lift later.
Right.
We'll get to it, don't worry.
Okay.
But yeah, he wakes up next day, knows Sarah, and we're like, oh shit, something's happened. He goes in, she's just in the kitchen. So it's a bit of a fake out.
Yeah, she's like getting ready to leave. And she was like, "Oh, what was up with last night?" He's like, "Oh, it was a work thing."
Yeah.
She was like, "Your boss treats you like shit. It's your day off." And he was like, "Yeah, I'm self-employed."
Yeah, and then this is the day when she would have been hit by the truck on the way to school.
Yeah.
And he knows that Carl, who's a PE teacher who is kind of a colleague of Sarah.
Yeah, so he was the one that technically killed Sarah because he pushed her in front of a lorry because he was pissed off that
George
had kind of given
like, bad investment advice.
Yeah, and he'd lost all his money.
Yeah.
So that's what kind of pissed him off. So George was like, right, I'm going to deal with this straight away.
Yeah, and he goes up and he's like, hey, like, I know that I saw your investment went down. I've moved stuff around, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, your money, your investment's safe.
Whether it's true or not, he's placated him and he's
But he could have also, like, gone back up to the flat knowing that these things and moved money around anyway to knew.
Before it happened. Yeah, say it had happened that night. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, and then before he goes off, he's like, Sarah, like, be careful on the road. And she's like, all right, Dad. And it's like,
yeah,
I was kind of half expecting something still to happen.
Well, it made me jump because as George is like turn away, he's like wave it, and then he nearly steps into the road and the lorry comes by, and I was like, whoa!
Like he's. Could
you imagine if he had got hit by that lorry?
Quite stupid still. Like he's.
Oh yeah.
He's not. You know. Yeah, and then he goes into the Lazarus Project, and he's just like absolutely
grinning like an idiot.
Yeah, and it's like. Archie's like, oh, you're happy? Because they obviously know.
Yeah, because he was desperate for them to turn it back, and everyone knew that.
Yeah, but it's such a motive as well. And I think that's something that Shiv mentioned when they had their little conversation.
Yeah,
he's like...
But he literally walks in, and Archie's like, how's Sarah?
Yeah, and he's like... She's like, not squished under a truck. It's a bit like, whoa, it's a bit...
Then she also said she spoke to Ryan.
Yes.
Who was deeply involved in their whole thing with shit.
He was like the pawn that... blah, blah, blah.
And she says the story checked out with Ryan. And I guess from his point of view, George's story does check out.
Yeah, because George was in Romania and Ryan just got asked to track him basically
by Shiv,
but not to tell anyone else. It was all very like, underhanded. There's a funny bit before that with not Sarah. Archie's like, I'll report you to HR. Oh, she's like a bit like moody. And George is like, oh, maybe you should get some. And Archie's like, I'll report you to HR. And he's like, oh, do we have a HR? And she's like, yeah, we did, but I fucked them all. Like, wow, yeah, okay. Archie's a bit of a lad, isn't she?
She really is.
There's a bit at the pub later where she's got like her blazer rolled up and she's like on the fruity. And it's like, really, she's like down to fight. It's like, yeah, I mean, people are like this, but it's you know.
There's a funny bit here as well where they're like, maybe Rebrov wanted to get. They're like, Rebrov's out again.
Yeah.
We're gonna go after him. So like, maybe he wanted to get caught so he could learn more about inside Lazarus. And George is standing there being like, oh shit.
Yeah, he's like, oh no. And we did say that. I remember we talked about it that first episode. We were like, when we realized he wanted to like destabilize it and destroy Lazarus, you're like, oh yeah. And now he's in like the best place to learn about it.
Yeah.
Much. It's like Loki from Avengers or many other things. Joker, Dark Knight.
Yeah.
All those things. Anything where a bad guy gets
Gandalf in the Two Towers.
Yes, it's definitely
not
the same as that.
It was just another character that was in prison for a significant period of time.
I think that was in the first one as well, wasn't it?
Is it?
What? Yeah, because he dies. Balrog kills him in the first one, so he can't. He's Gandalf the White.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And then George is in their beautiful, beautiful flat, which I noticed is a very nice flat. And he's cooking for Sarah when she gets home from from work.
And she's like, oh, I'm going to go to the pub with some of my friends. Do you want to come? And he's
No, she doesn't say, do you want to come? She's just like, I'm going to go to the pub.
And he's like, I've just got my dead girlfriend back. So he's just like, wants to spend all the time in the world with her. He's like, can I come?
And she's really surprised. And she's like, we're just going to be talking about work. And he's like, yeah.
And if anyone's ever gone to the pub with a group of teachers,
yeah,
boy, can it be boring.
Yes, do not. Even if you are tangentially working in teaching, or you used to work in teaching, or anything like that, it's no fun unless you're actually a teacher.
Yeah, I've got many friends that are teachers who work at the same school.
Yeah,
and if I meet up with them, it's like, let's not talk about the school you work at.
Yeah.
But yeah, George is like, oh, I won't get bored. And then it cuts to the pub and he's sitting there really bored.
And he's bored. And then he starts getting...
And they're talking about school.
They are, yeah. And he starts getting his weird flashbacks because when the two timelines are kind of concurrent, you get like the bleed through sometimes. And we've only seen it happen before, like the first few times, but now it seems to just happen kind of as and when.
Yeah, because...
He gets like a flash to waiting in the hospital. I guess that would have been what was happening at that point in the other timeline.
I think they mentioned it's just all those memories kind of flooding back together as well. His brain kind of putting it all together.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't say he has the ability to remember the time loops, and only the certain members of the Lazarus Project do.
But yeah, he what was I gonna say?
He's like, oh, I want to go home.
Yeah, there's that too.
And he says, do you want to come with me? And she's like, no, I'd like to stay out with my friends.
Yeah, like it's the most fucking annoying thing when someone's like,
what day is it as well? Like, is it a Friday night? And she's gone out and he's like, should we go home now at like whatever? Well, hopefully, because she's like, let's get smashed.
Yeah, she does literally say that. But yeah, it's always like when someone's like, oh, I'll come along with you. And you're like, I'm not sure if you should. You're probably going to be bored. And then straight away they're like, oh, I want to leave. You need to leave with me. Fuck off. Like,
no.
You didn't even have to come.
Where are we now?
So they've gone to France to get Rebrov.
Yes, there's like a strike team. Yeah, because last we left him, he was in Paris. Yeah, and there's a strike team going in. And they're like, we need to take him alive.
This was quite cool.
We see like from the outside of the building.
There's like a shootout.
We see like the flashing of the guns and we hear glass break. Yeah, flashing of the guns.
And like a couple of people fall out windows, I feel.
I think so, yeah. Or we see them fall down or whatever. And
then after all the shooting, it kind of calms down for a second.
I think the camera goes like down to the lower floor.
And Rebrov walks out smoking a cigarette.
And he's got like blood on his head. He's
and like on his cheeks. It's like, Who says smoking it doesn't look cool? Honestly.
Yeah, and at Lazarus, they're like, Rebrov waited so he could just kill the team to send a message.
Yeah, because all the SWAT team had cameras on them so they could steal the footage.
Yeah, and he's just like standing above the body. He's just like, I think he's smoking, just like looking at the body.
Yeah, and they're like, Rebrov didn't need to be there. He knew we were coming.
It's funny that this time the strike team doesn't have any named characters, whereas every time in the past it was either mostly characters.
Well, it's probably because it would have been like George, Shiv.
Yeah,
Archie.
exactly. That's what I mean. They would have all been killed. So they were like, this time we'll just send the drones out there.
Maybe the Dane was there.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, to be fair, there's not another reset in this bit, is there?
No.
So those people are dead.
But yeah, we get a bit where George and Sarah just kind of having some fun.
Oh no, before that, where's this like Rebrov and Shiv? The Rebrov and Shiv cases are never going to be closed. We're never going to stop looking for them. And then we kind of get like what seems to be like a skip forward in time, like a bit of a montage of, as you say, like Sarah and George
having fun. They're planning on going on a trip to Paris, and he's like, I haven't been to Paris in a while, and he gets a flash of last time he was there, a nuclear bomb went off.
Yes,
in like episode 1.
Yeah, and he's got this kind of weird kind of PTSD guilt kind of combo going with him. And then we skip to 3 months.
3 months later, and they're at a restaurant in Paris, and it's just kind of it's a lot of inane small chat.
Yeah,
Sarah's like, I want a cigarette. And
they're both in different vibes. You can kind of tell. Yeah.
And I've written here, Sarah seems a bit off here.
Yes.
Like she's just kind of going through the motions. Yeah. Is how I felt.
That's definitely from this whole bit, I had like this horrible like feeling. I was like, I know where this is going.
Yeah.
And it's
that kind of thing, you know, when you like meet up with someone and you go for a drink and you're like, oh yeah, we're not as close as we used to be.
Yeah. And the thing is, for us, we know that George has been through what turned out to only be like 8 days, but like this kind of character.
He literally went to Romania, stole a nuke, and set it off to get her back.
And killed personally killed maybe like 10 people, but inadvertently killed like hundreds of people.
And including killing Shiv, who he knew, Ryan inadvertently, who he knew.
And the thing is that he's like very content with being very normal and enjoying things.
Yeah.
Whereas, she's having kind of, she speaks about, she wants to have a cigarette. She's like, oh, I used to smoke before we met. She's like, should we do a runner? She wants to do kind of exciting things. And he's quite like, I've had enough danger for now. But they haven't had this conversation because she doesn't know that he works for the Lazarus Project.
Yeah. And then they'll walk through the streets of Paris and they're talking about how they met. And obviously, George remembers several different versions of this story.
Yes.
But
she kind of fills him in on stuff that he doesn't know. It's a bit more of like, oh, do you really know me kind of thing a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah.
She's like,
she went there to see a different guy and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah. And she talks about like, she's like, after this, instead of going home tomorrow, shall we go to like Thailand or Russia or whatever?
Yeah.
She's kind of got the kind of a bit of like the traveling bug, but also is restless.
Yeah, she says she doesn't want to stagnate.
Yes,
which
and
is
it's funny,
kind of the key emotion.
And she says she wants to go on adventures, which again is really ironic and quite sad because George has just had
like a mental 8 days.
Yeah, like the biggest, most traumatic adventure of sorts, you know.
Yeah, but they get back to their room and they're in bed.
Yes.
And I thought this was going to come up at dinner, but it didn't.
Yes.
But George asked Sarah to marry him.
Yes.
And she looks at him for a bit and then says yes.
I think he says something like, all those adventures, I want to do them together kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's quite...
He's very much like, whatever you want, I just want to be with you for the ride.
Which, in principle is nice, but I think she takes that in a different way to how he means it.
And also like part of like her whole like going on an adventure thing would be herself discovering herself type thing.
Yes.
Which may not necessarily be with somebody else doing it.
I think that's what she's kind of, And then we get this is what I was talking about with the kind of heartbreaking parts of it.
Yeah.
He wakes up and she is sitting dressed and packed, not even at the end of the bed, like the other side of the room.
On a chair at a
on
table.
A chair, like just wistfully looking out the window. And it's like, I've literally written bad vibes.
Yeah.
Like, oh God, I could feel it, you know, like I can feel that. I've not had that specific thing happen, but you know, it's, yeah.
She says that she can't marry him and she's been thinking about them.
Yes.
And she doesn't know if she's still happy. It's all the classic things. It
is all the stuff, and she even says, like, it's not you, it's me. I know that sounds really shitty, but
I don't think we want the same things. Like, it's the bloody breakup playbook.
And he's literally woken up, and you can see he's kind of half trying to sit up, and he's like, his eyes are welling up.
Yeah, and he's like, we can do whatever. I can be whatever.
He comes across quite desperate though, doesn't he?
He's like, we're George and Sarah.
I know. And he's like, I can do whatever. And she's like, yeah, people change. And then she goes, I'll send you the money for the trip. And then walks out, and it's like,
she also says, I don't like.
Oh, she doesn't want him to like.
She doesn't think they're meant to be together.
Yes. And he's firmly of this belief. But he knows.
He literally set off a nuke so that they could be together. But he
also knows that there's loads of timelines where they didn't meet. Yeah. So it's like, she is right, but yeah.
He's well in love with her.
Yeah, and it's, yeah. I mean, I wasn't expecting it to go that way, but it's a really interesting.
No. As this episode started getting into it, I was like, oh, fuck. Because we haven't seen Sarah since like episode 2.
We've had this idealized.
As well.
Yeah.
But it's all been him breaking bad so he can get Sarah back. Yeah. And I think even he, to an extent, forgot about Sarah as a person.
Yeah, and Archie speaks about it in this next scene, but it's so like
created this
a bit like
concept of a person.
I can't remember what it's called. There's some films that deal with this kind of thing where it's like a drama and someone built someone up in their head, and it's like maybe they didn't want the same things. You've got this idealized version of someone.
Yeah.
You didn't really check in whether they wanted the same stuff as you. And it's,
yeah.
And he obviously, you know, because he saw that timeline in the first episode where they got married and they were pregnant and all that sort of thing. So he was like, that's what's meant to happen.
And like, he knew there's a possibility that they could get married and have kids. Like that is on the card.
Which is what so that's his like, destiny but that's just one possible. It's a lot to kind of get your head round and his head round, but yeah, it was pretty hard hitting.
But I feel like it's a really smart way to play this series and turn it of like she does get back, but it's not what you expect.
Yeah, I mean the thing is as well, like we've talked about it in previous episodes, like if he'd fucked things up so badly, if he hadn't covered his tracks in the way that he kind of has done, he could have brought her back and just been like arrested or killed or whatever. Yeah. And at that point we were saying, I think he even said like, he doesn't mind, like as long as she's alive, you know, she didn't deserve to die, that kind of thing. Yeah. And that's still the case here, but he didn't really consider that he wouldn't be part of her life.
He kind of said that, but hadn't ever actually really considered it.
Yeah, he always thought, maybe he thought that he'd be on the run and she'd be pining after him for the rest of her life.
Yeah, or she'd just go on the run with him.
Yeah, it's all these kind of, it is clever. And Archie talks about it in the next scene. I guess we'll go through to that.
So George and Archie are at the pub and she's kind of consoling him whilst playing the fruity machine, as you said. And she's like, I'm not that surprised. Like, and she makes a fair point of like, you know, she might have some other purpose aside from you.
Yeah.
And I wrote down this line that I love from George being like, can't I just moan about being dumped by my girlfriend without being accused of internalized misogyny? I was like, as I know you before, you've said some of the dialogue's a bit wonky, but sometimes it's really good.
It's really good because before that she goes on this whole thing like about how women can have an identity separate from the person they're in a relationship with, and it's like it's a very, very good point, and it's like he should be happy that he's saved her. His motives were obviously more flawed than he realized, kind of thing.
He's obviously the main character in this series, but he's got major like main character syndrome.
Yeah.
Where he's like thinks he's the main character.
Yeah.
And he is, but it's nice to see
he's
that.
Not in his world.
It's nice to see that turned on its head and him not just be the main character.
Yeah.
But yeah, they then move on. And Archie says that Shiv's popped up in Hamburg. And she's like, he's been off the radar for months. He was in a crowded place with cameras using his credit card.
Yeah.
Like, he wanted us to know he was there.
Yes.
Like, Shiv's not fucking you, George. In both ways. He's not an idiot.
Like he wanted to be, spotted. And then we get a little...
like, something stinks.
Yeah, and George is still a bit like, oh, because he's like not got away with it. Yeah.
Pulling the old collar.
And we get a little bit where George is scrolling through Sarah's Instagram, and there's the post that she put about teaching, and it's like, when you're a teacher, every seed that you plant grows a mind. And he's like, what does he say? He's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Which is quite funny because it's kind of him being like, actually, Sarah's kind of cringy.
It's one of those sort of things that teachers do always post.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, fuck off.
Yeah.
But then he continues scrolling, sees a picture of her and accidentally likes it on Instagram.
And he's like, oh, no.
Yeah. But it's too late.
Yeah.
Then that Lazarus.
That's a whole different program.
Lazarus. And he's looking through some pictures of some dead people.
Yeah.
And one of them has a blackbird necklace.
Yes.
What's the significance of that necklace, Sam?
Well, when we first saw it, we didn't see it because it wasn't like it was something that they wrote into an episode.
When we first saw it, we didn't see it.
So Red Rob's ex-partner / wife / mother of his child, Janet. I was going to call her Julie then. Julie. Janet.
Janet.
She is half on the run, half living undercover with her daughter, Red Rob's daughter.
Yeah.
And she was in Barcelona with George, and she had this blackbird necklace, which wasn't drawn to our attention until George was going through Shiv's banking details.
Yep.
And he saw that was things going to someone codenamed Blackbird, and then he flashed back to that and went, oh, it must be Janet. So we are supposed to believe that Janet is involved in this slaughter in some way.
Yes. But George would be the only one that would know that he's the only one that's met Janet recently and seen the necklace.
Yes, because he just went, oh, these are being sent to Janet, which is a bold claim as well. But I think maybe he had something to back it up. I don't really know.
But this is all these dead people, and this blackbird necklace happened in Hamburg. Where we know Shiv is.
Yes. And he's like, you don't think this could be Shiv, do you? And I think Janet's...
It's like, we're sending you to find out.
Yes.
And then we see a lovely panoramic of Hamburg.
Yeah.
I was in Hamburg a few years ago, and I was like, hey,
did you recognize
I've been there.
Yeah, nice.
Like, I know that. You know, that big river that goes through the middle of Hamburg.
The Hamburgian River. Everyone knows it.
I think it's the Rhine. I don't know.
The Hamburgian River.
The Hamburg River. Archie and George.
It is the Rhine.
It is the Rhine. Look at me. Geography out of the wazoo.
Yeah.
They're
at the... Oh, no, they're in a car with someone.
I think it's like a policeman.
I think he's probably like a Hamburgian policeman. Hamburger.
In the hamburgers. They're not hamburgians. They're hamburgers.
I didn't actually think it was that. He's like, no one's come to see the bodies yet. Are you MI5? And he's like, we're not MI5. Shut up.
He's literally like, fuck off. Like, in his face is saying, fuck off.
Fuck off. And they go to the crime scene, and Archie's got like...
No, George does some great detective skills.
Yeah, he does the classic thing.
He's like, the glass has been broken and fallen inwards. that means somebody broke in.
I half expected Archie to be like, yeah, no fucking shit. But she just carries on with, she's got like an iPad that I guess has the photos of the crime scene. Because the bodies have been removed. But
I think that shows George's level of like...
I don't think it's supposed to be that though. It feels like it's like George is saying his bit about...
I could fucking figure that out though.
Yeah, it's anyone who's seen like...
It's such like a trope at this point.
Yeah. But then in Hot Fuzz... at the start, there's a scene where he says it to his ex-girlfriend, and they're all like, "Ooh," and all the crime scene people have been like doing it the wrong way. So I think people still think it's a bit of a clever.
Yeah, but that was like 2005
or something. Yeah,
yeah.
But yeah, they go through and they're like, this one guy got shot in the chest 7 times. The rest are all headshots, and they're both like human shields.
Yeah, and then we see some faces of the people that were killed.
Yes. Are they the same lads that were in the other one, the Baldies?
I think so.
I recognise one of the Baldies.
No, I think I saw one of them was Rudy, who was the caretaker.
Okay.
I was like, I think that was Rudy, and it was a bunch of bald blokes. So I think that was the team that he had the whole shootout with around the bomb.
Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, there's no summaries on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
I was gonna see if anybody had
but like I thought it was weird. Who knew about them apart from George?
I don't know. Because as we kind of find out, if we carry on a little bit, they say like, oh, there was a hostage here and it's a rescue attempt, and they're like, did they escape with the hostage? And then they see a bit of hair like conveniently on the thing, which maybe was on purpose, to be honest, because it was very convenient. And they're like, oh, somebody came to blah blah blah. Oh, I think I know. I reckon I know what's going on. We'll get through a little bit further. They flashes back to Lazarus.
Oh, I think I know what's going on as well.
They flash back to Lazarus and they tested the hair and it was Janet, so he doesn't have to pretend not to know it was Janet now. And they're like, Janet was there, and
they're like potentially Chinese. Yeah, government.
There's someone called like Zhang Rui.
And if the Chinese government are kidnapping former Lazarus agents, then we've got a problem.
Yes. And then Wes and Archie have a bit of a conversation we don't hear in the office. And then Wes sends Archie on her own to go look into it.
Yeah, and George is clearly not included.
He's like cold shoulder. It's kind of sus from his point of view, and probably rightfully so. So, do you reckon Shiv is doing this to lead them down a trail of maybe
finding
that's not what I was
George
thinking.
Because they were so heavily involved?
But I don't think he would know. I guess he's had time to investigate.
But they might have. Yeah, it's been a few months, and Shiv's quite, good at this whole spy stuff.
Yeah, they've said like last episode, he's
and
like
because
the
they
best
said, he's in Hamburg, he's shown up in Hamburg for a reason. Then these murder happens. They might start investigating these people a bit more.
Yeah,
and it may point them in a direction. It might then be, oh, these guys were looking for the bomb.
Yeah,
but
the problem is all the proof side of it is reset.
It may just be the first step in
maybe it's
Shiv's
even
plan.
showing George that he's onto him, kind of thing. What I was going to say, because they mentioned the Chinese government and the lady that's on the CCTV is a Chinese agent. Maybe the Chinese government have their own Lazarus Project. Because if you think about how the episode ends, there is something that George didn't anticipate.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe, I don't know, I've just thought about that just then. But if they were to do a season 2,
I was going to say, that feels like a season 2 thing.
Can you imagine that? Yeah. So it's like competing agents resetting without each other knowing.
Because they have to come to some sort of negotiation.
Well, that could be quite interesting. I just thought of it just then because I accidentally wrote down Chinese Lazarus agent, but I meant to write down something else.
But yeah, it could be called the...
You're going to try and think of what Lazarus is in Chinese?
No, I was going to say like the Confucius Project.
But the whole point of Lazarus is that he came back from the dead.
Yeah. I'm fucking getting some really heavy deja vu of this.
Oh, yeah.
I think we've been talking about fucking Lazarus Project. Even saying that, I think we talk about Lazarus too much.
Yeah.
Chinese myth come back from dead. There's got to be one.
We've done this episode before.
Oh shit. Oh. Okay, so there's Meng Po, who serves in Dayu, the Chinese realm of the dead. It's her task to ensure that the souls are ready to be reincarnated.
Can you fucking imagine if you call it and it's like the Meng Po Project?
Could you? Meng Po. Right, I'm putting it on the record now.
Yeah, we got it. Predictions on the boards.
So they serve Meng Po soup. So they give them something to consume. And this soup wipes the memory of the person so they can reincarnate in the next life without burdens of a previous life.
Yeah, that's fucking spot on, right?
Right?
Okay, yeah. I mean, we'll find out in the next episode.
If they don't do that, I'll be really disappointed.
Can you imagine the flashback at the start of the next episode? Oh, no, the flashback will probably be something else. But can you imagine if it was, just in China and it was like someone else being recruited for, and they're like, it's the Meng Po Project.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah. Well, we've done pretty well with predictions so far, despite being a very unpredictable program. We've had some.
That's a bit of our own little research there.
Then we get something that was really surprising to me. Partly because I didn't realize what year we were in.
Oh, yeah.
It goes June 30th, 2024, checkpoint night.
Right,
and I was like, what? So this solidifies when it was set.
Yeah, but I think it's still the first episode of the first season
was 2022.
Yeah.
Yeah.
July 2022.
So that was just before. No, that was as it came out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it started when it came, and then obviously the first timeline is the whole marriage COVID stuff. Well,
yes,
Mars,
yeah.
And then they go back. But
then he had a year of training up to July 2023, which is when the nuke went off in Paris.
Yeah,
and then now they've just done that.
And then it's the 1st of July 2023 where Sarah originally gets hit by the
That's
truck.
what I mean. So that was where we spent most of our time in 2023.
Yeah, and then we've just gone back to there, and now we've done that whole year.
Yeah.
And now
he was with Sarah for 3 months, and then they broke up, and then he did the rest of the year up to June, end of June. So we're now in 2024. Yeah. And
like that kind of lines up with what we were.
Yeah, it's pretty much. We weren't 100% sure if it was set in 22 or 23, but we were pretty sure.
It could have even been 20. Well, it's post-COVID, so
yeah, it was still recent memory kind of thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I'm kind of glad.
Yeah, we were pretty on board with it. Yeah, and it makes sense. Most programs are set unless they specify they're set when they're released, aren't they? Yeah. Realistically. But he's just chilling, isn't he?
It's checkpoint night.
He's still living in that beautiful flat on his own, which I guess he's got a government.
He's getting Lazarus money now.
That Laz dollar, that dollar pound.
I mean, they must get paid as much as in the field MI6 agents.
Yeah, is that a lot? I guess it must be.
Well,
Should I look it up?
James Bond looks like he's got money, but obviously Archie moved from MI6 to Lazarus.
The real life salaries of 007. This is from a website that I'm not going to name because I don't want to give them any credit. Starting salary of an intelligence agent is 42,700. So they'd be in that higher tax brackets. That kind of fucks them a little bit, to be perfectly honest.
That seems really low considering they're risking their life and having no real life.
Bond would have been earning 85,997 as a Royal Navy commander.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, the SIS starting salary would not be enough for him to afford his £2 million luxury Chelsea home, though he could afford to rent in London. That's pretty much it.
I think surely if you're a 00 agent, you're earning six figures.
You would hope so. I mean, the thing is as well, yeah, they'd say the M starting salary is 160,000. I feel like she'd be on more than that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the
government,
you'd get
the government
expenses
pays
on everything.
Gary Lineker to host Match of the Day more than 150,000.
You would get pretty much everything on expenses as well. Like you wouldn't have to pay for anything on your missions and stuff.
But
so
it's also
you could live a bit of a bougie lifestyle.
But you also sworn to like basically hold no lands, no titles, marry nobody, don't have kids because
it's not a fucking Night's Watch.
But it's the same sort of deal. You can't. Yeah. You're a spy.
Yes, which means that you've got to live in somewhat anonymity, which means that there's no point in you having too much money.
I bet he hasn't got a Facebook account. Despite being a boomer.
He has it as Jimmy Bonnard. Yeah. Anyway, we get a call. George, get a call from Sarah. So it's what is it? 9 months after they broke up.
Yeah, and she's like, let's meet
tomorrow. And he's like kind of buzzing but quite surprised.
And this is still the 30th of June.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that he's gonna have to go meet her every time they go back.
Yeah, true.
Like, for fuck's sake.
And then God, this was a.
We clearly see the clock say 11:57, and I was like, "Oh shit!"
Like something is gonna go down, and it certainly does. Someone comes through the door. You hear like the door opening or being unlocked.
I think you hear like close, like the dum.
Yeah, and you can hear like footsteps. I think, and George grabs his gun. He's doing the little close combat weird little hold that they do.
Yeah,
where they're like putting it up to their chest. And he comes through a door, and do they knock the gun out of his hand?
They disarm him in some way, and they roll around on the floor a bit.
Yes.
And it's Sarah. No.
She's like, I couldn't wait till tomorrow. I wanted to come and kill you.
It's Shiv.
It's Shiv, yeah.
And they kind of separate a bit, and
I think the gun is slightly nearer to George. Isn't it? It's not the case of both reaching for the gun. It's a case of
Shiv reaches for his pocket.
The bloody moron that he is. No.
And as he's done that, George grabs the gun.
Click on the drawer. He's had another year of training.
Because he sees Shiv's hand in his pocket, pulls the trigger.
Boom. Second time he shot him. Third time, really. But
and Shiv just kind of like goes and kind of drops. And
we see the checkpoint as, I think before he even drops, we see it tick over.
Yeah.
And it's like, fuck. Yeah. This is the fucking moment that...
And Shiv...
He looks surprised as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, and imagine if like when Janet had her baby, the time loop went back.
Oh shit! Yeah, Shiv's got to keep reliving this if it keeps going back.
I mean, technically, even if it's like 10 times, he's only going to live another 10 seconds.
Yeah, because he falls down, blood pouring everywhere. He's gurgling away.
And George finds that he was actually reaching for a little note in his pocket.
Yes.
Not a gun.
And by the time George has realised and got it out, it's completely covered in blood. And you can't read
anything. And it was probably like hey, George, let's have a truce.
Yes. But at the same time, I called Shiv an idiot. He's not an idiot. So there is more to this than it appears. He didn't come in, try and sneak up to George 3 minutes too, and reach into his jacket pocket for no reason. Like he's either trying to set him up or like there is something going on here, right?
Yeah. So
the neighbor knocks at the door.
The neighbor knocks on the door. And George goes to the door and he's like, "Is everything all right?" Like I heard it said noise. He's like, "Yeah, so I'm just watching a movie.
Yeah.
Like, sorry, it was a bit loud."
The guy's like, "Your speakers must be like amazing. It sounds like a gun went off."
And he kind of gets a bit casual and opens his front door a bit too much. And there's blood all over his white t-shirt.
Bloody handprints on his t-shirt. And the guy's like, and like goes away. And then this is what I was thinking of. We skip to George, the CCTV in the elevator, and he's like,
you see him dragging him in like a rug or something through the corridor and takes him into the lift.
Yeah, and the lift says 4:30 a.m. or 4 a.m.
Right.
And we later get the person who talks to him later says 12:30. We saw you.
Oh, did it say
so
4
I don't.
a.m.?
Yeah.
Huh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I wrote it down at the time because I was like, maybe he waited like
a few hours.
But anyway, I guess it's probably just an error in the...
Yeah, but yeah, we clearly see the CCTV footage of him putting him in the lift, and I was like, part of me was like, obviously...
Also, why the fuck is he, like, the fact is, Shiv came to try and kill. Well, he didn't know. He didn't have a gun on him, did he?
No.
I suppose that's. But still, just call it in. Like, call it in. It's such a.
But I was also
I guess
thinking,
he's feeling so guilty that he thinks he's going to get caught.
Part of me was hoping that we didn't get that camera shot because it implies, a camera spotted him.
Yeah, true. It kind of ruins the reveal later, doesn't it?
But he's driving a car. I think it's Shiv's car
because he pulled the keys out of his
Once
pocket.
again, Shiv's in the boot of his own car.
Yes, true. Yeah.
And he drives to like the docks.
Yeah, and he must set it to explode in some way because he's standing back. He sets it to explode, and then the body just like falls down.
No, I think it's just like it goes bang, and then there's like an arm lands.
No, it was like the whole body bag, like in one thing, like fell in front of him.
I swear it wasn't that big.
I think it was the whole thing. Yeah,
that's quite funny.
And I was like, this is so weird. I mean, maybe I got it wrong, but it looked like it was like the whole wrapped up thing landed in front of him.
No, it didn't look that big to me, so I just assumed it was like an arm.
Maybe, yeah. And then, then we see him. I guess he dumps the rest of it or the body somewhere.
Yeah, but we get him getting home, and he sees like the blood-stained wooden floor that he's got, and he's like, ah.
Yeah, and then he realizes that I think he's running late for the cafe.
Sarah,
it's like 5 to 9 or something, and he's like, oh shit.
So
Which is why it would have made sense if it was 4 a.m. when he decided to take it. Because you wouldn't take it out at midnight, would you?
We don't know how well. Yeah, for starters, he should have waited a bit so his neighbour went to bed.
Yeah, which he probably waited a bit.
But
then
we
he's
also
got to walk back.
Don't know how long it takes
him to get from the docks to
and set it to blow up.
Yeah.
So what is the 12? We'll get to it when we get to actually.
Yeah, they say the person who talks to him later says 12:30.
Is it like what were you doing at 12:30?
Yeah. So that
because that.
But then he shows him the thing, and I think the implication is that was then.
But 12:30 could have been when the neighbour heard the shot.
No, because it
or
was
reported the shot.
Maybe, yeah. But the neighbour would have said it was midnight. They wouldn't have been like, oh, it was 1:30.
But they could have looked at the time when the neighbour could have been like,
yeah,
and then eventually be like, fuck, I need to call the police. And it was 12:30 when he called the police.
Maybe. But I'm pretty sure, maybe.
But anyway, he goes to meet Sarah and they have a bit of small talk.
Yeah, there's a bit of a hug, and it's kind of, I mean, she says
it's
to him
the hug you give to your ex.
She says to him on the phone before, like, it's nothing important, and it is important. So she kind of bullshit.
And he kind of knows it's going to be important. Otherwise, she wouldn't ask to meet.
And it's Catchup. She's like, you still in the flat? And he's like, yeah. And she's like, I've met someone.
Yeah.
And she's like, and we're getting married.
Which is a real kick in the teeth to him, because just less than a year ago, she said she didn't want to marry him.
Yes. And did you think it was going to be Carl?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, I was like...
And I think George thought it was going to be Cole as well.
Because after a bit, he's like, who is it? And she's like, oh, you don't know him. And I'm like, okay, well, at least there's that. As Carl didn't swoop in like he did in that other timeline.
She's like, I want to be one to tell you. And she was like, I hope you don't hate me. And he was like, this would be so much easier.
That's
if you
another heartbreaking
me.
bit. Is it such a sad thing?
Yeah, it's so much harder if I hated you.
Yeah.
But then he's like, this could have been a text, and walked off.
Because I guess he's just murdered his friend for the second time.
Yeah.
He's had so much to deal with that I guess he was like, oh, at least maybe Sarah's going to get back with me.
Yeah.
And then he gets the bad news. He's like, fuck off, mate. Honestly, I've got
it
literally more important things going on.
Or a phone call.
Yeah. Phone call probably would have been better, because then you can hang up on them afterwards. You don't have to, like, she was trying to do the right thing, but also like she wasn't thinking about what he would have thought at that point.
But I did notice, possibly based on previous times he sat on the pub with someone, he didn't make the mistake of ordering a drink first. Because it's been like twice he's like left a pint at a pub.
Yeah. I mean, this would have been a coffee, but
it's still ordering a drink. And then he goes to the shop and buys like every cleaning product under the sun. And he's also checking his phone, and I'm like, has he Googled like how to clear stains out of a wooden floor?
Blood stains off a wooden floor, And then he goes into, I think this is when the neighbour calls the police.
I think he's actually looking on Instagram again, So we then see a picture of Sarah and some guy that's not Carl.
Yeah, and there's photos with the ring, and it's like little emoji things saying engaged and stuff.
So that's probably, he wasn't looking up. He was just buying bleach.
But the other thing was that when they're talking about catching up, we find out that she's still teaching, which means she probably didn't go on any adventures, which means that
also, right,
I guess she was just not happy in their relationship, which is fair enough. But
another thing. So 3 months after the 1st of July, they go to Paris for a week.
Yeah.
Right. So she's a teacher. That could be half term in October.
Yeah.
She wants to stay for a bit. She can't fucking do that. She's a teacher.
I think that was the thing. I think she was like, she probably didn't like her job more than anything.
She
was posting fake cringy things on Instagram to try and make herself feel better about her job.
The teachers don't get to choose when they're off.
I guess she was gonna give up her job. She wanted to do a runner for the restaurant.
But then she went back to teaching and married a guy.
And she's probably gonna be even more boring than she would have been before. I'm not on George's side, but I can see his frustrations in the situation.
Yeah, and he starts taking it out on the blood on his living room floor. Angrily
but when he comes in with all the cleaning products, very sus looking, the neighbour sees him and is like, all right, mate.
Hi, George.
And it's like,
please don't kill me.
It's like, this guy is fucking calling the police right now. And and
he burns the note that Shiv gave him.
That's right. Even though there's probably a way of finding out
But George is an idiot.
Yeah. Unless you can do it on an app, he's not interested. Is there an app for this?
I was going to say.
Maybe you should have developed an app to keep your girlfriend, George. Well,
I think Wes has got an app to keep your girlfriend, hasn't she? You just turn back the time every time she breaks up with you.
Yeah, that is the other mystery that we haven't had solved yet. How they're doing.
Yeah.
I think that might be where it's coming into the next episode.
I was going to say, this isn't the first time Sarah's broken up with him. Because the first ever time he goes back, he gets all weird about the COVID Mars thing.
So we saw that it wasn't that, they were never that far off from breaking up, so he should have been a bit more realistic about it. But he comes back from work or something. We don't know what it is.
They go to Lazarus first. He tries calling Archie and like several times and she's not answering.
Right.
So she's
in cover, like she's
doing something which is probably the mission that Wes had sent her on. But we don't know about because George is the main character, not Archie.
Yes.
But then he's going home from work that night.
And he gets out of the car and there is a very police looking man waiting for him.
There certainly is. And he's like,
he flashes his badge. Plain clothes as well, so he's like a detective.
He's like, where were you on the night of the 30th of June? And he was like, oh, yeah, I don't know. He's like, well, we heard there was a disturbance here. And he was like, oh, yeah, I think I was at home. But I don't really know anything about that. And then he's like playing dumb, which obviously is the smart thing to do. And then he shows him the image, the still of the camera in the lift of him with Shiv's wrapped up body. And he's like,
I'm George Addo, I'm arresting you from suspicious of murder.
And I was like, Lazarus could probably get him out of this, but
yes, which is why he should have fucking admitted to it in the first place.
Yeah, he could just say Shiv turned up trying to kill me.
Shiv said that time when they went to beat up Carl, he was like, we've got people in the police, like we can make sure nothing happens to you. Maybe not so much for murder, but they're fucking spies.
But
they?
He could have also been like, Shiv's turned up, tried to kill me, and I shot him.
But like as he's being arrested,
the fucking sky explodes.
Yeah, there's like weird lights coming down from the sky,
and I don't know about you, but I was like, this is like weird. It's not just a bomb.
This is weird. Yeah,
it's like the sky had shattered into like blue mirror pieces.
Yeah.
Because it's nighttime and it's very blue, whatever's happening.
Or it's like getting to nighttime. It's not like bright daylight. Yeah.
But the whatever it is like light
and
blue.
He looks up and he's like, what the fuck? And then we get a reset. But is it a reset in the same way? I think it does go back.
Yeah, because we go back again to that night, and Shiv's just been shot. And
I know that's when George is like,
what the fuck was that?
And
then Shiv like collapses and dies.
Yeah.
And it's the end, and it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah. So,
like, what?
First of all, he needs to grab that note immediately before the blood hits it, which I hope is what will happen at the start of the next episode.
He needs to contact Lazarus straight away.
Yes, and not do that. And also,
but then Lazarus would be like, why did you call us last time?
That's not what normally happens when there's a reset, is it?
No.
Because the thing we know about resets...
He gets like a flash of images as well.
Nothing normally like explodes. Because we know that it's like it's a temporal thing in space that they pass, which is the checkpoint.
What if...
What is happening like on its own now?
Yeah. Or... Yeah, maybe that.
Yeah.
Or the temporal thing exploded.
Oh, and that's it.
And that's it.
Maybe.
There's no more turning back time.
Well, that would be like Rebrov can just give up. Because his whole thing is to... Or, as I was saying earlier...
So that'd be great, because Rebrov wins, George loses,
I mean,
Shiv's
George
dead.
should lose, really. Especially now we've had his internalised misogynism exposed. He's learned a lesson, kind of. No, but this is what I was thinking. If the Chinese or maybe Russian agency have figured out a different way of activating it, that could be the way that they do it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's what kind of made me think about it.
Or maybe it's the Chinese destroying the temporal thing.
Yeah. Because maybe Shiv's just gone to them. And because also we know that Shiv had a relationship, like working relationship with the Russian embassy ambassador.
The same way Wes did with the Russian ambassador.
The same ambassador, yeah.
That was the Russian ambassador.
Yeah. With the Russian ambassador as well, because she was like, I know Shiv, why should I believe you?
Yeah.
So he might have just gone to her and been like, this is the deal. We keep turning back time. I can tell. But he doesn't know anything about it though, does he? But I guess in 6 months, a year, they could figure out, if they knew what to look for, look in space. Anyway, like I was kind of like, it felt a little bit like Doctor Who-ish and a bit like, this is a bit silly. But and thinking back on it, I'm kind of a bit more like sold on it.
I'm quite excited by it because it seemed like everything's in place for just like a big finale.
Yeah.
And this has just put a whole spanner in the works.
Yes.
We're just like, oh shit, I have no idea. I genuinely have no idea what it is and what's going to happen.
Both the breakup with Sarah and Shiv coming back to life but dying again. And basically,
that's so sad.
There's not the only way they can stop him from dying. They can't really ever stop him from dying now, can they?
No,
unless George learns some like super medical skills that he can immediately put to use the next loop.
Yeah, but he dies within seconds, doesn't he?
Yeah, because he gets shot like in the heart, basically. We're assuming, but yeah, it was like I'd say it was a mixed episode just because the bit after the breakup kind of dragged to that reveal at the end
as
a little
bit.
I
going through, even with the break, after the breakup until it was like
you're like it's almost like one chapter ended and it took a while to get a hook. And this is why I was thinking it's a bit of a weird penultimate episode in that it didn't feel like it built on that momentum. It felt like it stopped and had to start again a little bit. If you know what I mean.
Part of me's glad though they didn't go down like the Game of Thrones route, which always had the big penultimate episode, and then the after was just the aftermath.
Oh yeah, no, I wouldn't have wanted.
So obviously
that,
it was like Ned Stark, the Battle of Blackwater, the Red Wedding. It was always the penultimate episode 9. So then it was kind of like seeing the aftermath.
The repercussions, because it was as much about the political intrigue and stuff as anything, wasn't it?
Yeah, so whereas this is like
it's just fucking whatever, honestly. I have no idea what's coming. I think that particularly like the way that the last episode ended with the feels like it only goes backwards and like the reveal that it finally happened and all that, I think that was on the screen like a better ending. But that was what we were expecting, and maybe that's why it paid off.
And
this is just like I have no idea what fucking.
We've said consistently that this series has been great at twisting and turning and not being predictable at all.
Yeah.
And again, this episode has done that.
Yeah.
Between Sarah breaking up with him, the Shiv getting killed at midnight,
and George
going off on a mission.
George getting caught in like the most like normal way possible as well. Like
the most George way.
He didn't get caught for nuking people in Romania or killing agents. Well, it was for killing an agent, but just in like a normal murder situation.
Yeah.
Just a normal murder, you know. Yeah.
Just a normal
No,
murder.
it was good fun. I hadn't really thought about ratings. I don't know if you had thought really.
So obviously we've had a few 8s. I don't
Yeah.
think it's quite that level.
I
but
think it's probably.
I still think it's good. So I think I'm going to go 7.
Yeah, I think that feels right.
There was like episode 2. I remember being quite weak. That I think I may have given a 5.
Yeah.
Maybe
5,
I
6
think I've given a 6 and then given a few like 7 and 8.
I think 1 8 so far.
I think I've had a few.
Maybe 2, yeah. The main thing that I'm kind of upset about with this is that Shiv's potentially dead, like permanently.
That is it now. Like, there's no.
I mean, unless this temporal time thing maybe means that it goes back further or starts skipping around, or you know, if it's all gone to shit, maybe we'll get skips back in time further, or you know. I don't think they'll get too wacky in terms of time travel, but they might skip it. Maybe it goes back a day before, and it's like,
imagine in the last episode, just like David Tennant turns up and been like, "What have you done?"
And the Lazarus Project is just a branch of Torchwood, or like unit or whatever, and you're like, "Fuck's sake!" Imagine he just turns up in his Doctor Who suit, and you're like, and then he's like, "Hello, I'm David McDonald, and I'm from the Scottish Secret Service."
But yeah, I am very much looking forward to this last episode. I'm probably going to watch it this weekend.
Yeah, same.
And then be like, oh,
yeah,
and then start looking up if there's going to be a season 2.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as we both watch it, we can look into that, see what we can find out. Have a bit of discussion. If there is, we can.
They may just sit on it a bit and see the reviews.
I think because it all came out in one go, I think it's probably up there if it's out or not.
But they're probably waiting for the run. They probably waited 8 weeks for the run to be complete on TV as well.
That's true.
Which
that
would have been a few weeks ago.
Yeah, because we've had a couple bits off. So maybe the news came out. I'm sure we saw something about it, but I can't remember if it was either way. It might have been very early on. It might have been confirmed, but who's to know?
Yeah.
Who's to know?
And even if they've got a season 2, they could just completely mix it up and
change
the characters completely.
It could be set in 2050.
Yeah, or just have like, say all of Lazarus ends. It could just be Archie setting up Lazarus again with a whole new team.
Yeah, I mean, there's a good chance that a lot of characters will die in this last episode, even if there is a season 2. But,
so stuff we want to find out in the last episode is what Shiv was trying to tell George.
Yeah, / what was on that note.
Will George get away with it?
Yeah.
What is the Lazarus Project?
Like, how do... Because
do they do it?
Because this was actually something I was going to say earlier. There was a joke about, or maybe, I think it's when Rebrov is having his meltdown. He's like, is it a secret cabal? Is it aliens? And it's like, well, we just had a bit of an alien-y kind of thing happening there.
And then the final thing would be, I know, are the Chinese doing something? And then finally...
are the Chinese doing something?
like their own thing.
Or Russian. It could be a 50-50.
And then finally, what was that thing in the sky? So we've got like 5 intriguing things to find out.
Yeah. I think if there's a season 2, at least one of those would carry on through.
Maybe the whole Chinese or Russian things. Most
it would be
likely.
A good reveal at the end.
Yeah. What was the other thing I was going to say? Oh yeah, one thing that we've kind of overlooked is that in episodes like 1 and 2, Revrov is set up to be the big bad. Yeah, and he's so not the big bad.
But we saw in this episode that he is bad and he is capable of just taking other guys out.
But I kind of like the fact that he's like the main focus, but he's not actually. It's all everything else going on is the focus.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Him and Shiv could have linked up, and they could have been working together in these 6 months, 9 months, and I mean, Rebrov he was working alongside George, so he's kind of not particularly out to get George, because he jokingly says at the end of last episode, he's like, haha, I hope you're running, George, like you stupid bastard.
But he's also probably like is thinking like, oh, I can use George.
Yeah, totally. Like if George got desperate again, like say he accidentally killed Shiv, you know, he could be quite a good little pawn for him to have, couldn't he? Said the word porn a few times this episode.
Part of me is obviously naturally concerned that the last episode won't live up to it, but
Yeah.
It's the highest rated episode of the series.
9.9. Wow. God, I didn't realize.
But it does imply that it's got a
good conclusion.
A good conclusion. Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
But I think that is it for episode 7 of the Lazarus Project.
It is.
Which means it's now time for
Personal Projects.
And this time, it's personal.
Projects.
So, Samuel, what have you been watching, dancing, playing? Yeah. Actually, I meant playing in terms of instrument then, but it also works for games.
It does, yeah. Oh, I didn't know if you wanted to go first in this case.
Yeah, okay.
You've got a little thing.
A couple of nights ago, started watching Pinocchio.
Oh, did you? Okay, yeah.
Disney Plus.
I haven't yet watched it.
With old Timothy Hanks.
Timothy Hanks, indeed, yeah.
It was fine.
It is Tom Hanks. I thought it was called Tim.
It's good as a Timothy.
Yeah.
I was very tired, so I went to bed about halfway through.
It's like almost 2 hours for a film that I think is probably closer to an hour and 20 minutes, the original.
Yeah, and as I was watching, I was like, I kind of know the story beats, but I can't remember Pinocchio too well.
I think they've added some bits in as they do.
It was fine.
Is it musical?
No, there may be some musical bits later on
bits, that
I didn't see, but not particularly. It's fine. It looks good.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. I've seen the trailer, and the design of Pinocchio himself looks pretty accurate to what you'd expect.
Yeah, but yeah, I wouldn't say it was bad. I didn't turn it off because like Mary Poppins Returns, it was just 'cause I was very tired.
Yeah.
But obviously, not many people are talking about this Disney remake because it's all white people.
Well, they did make the Blue Fairy black, so
well, it wasn't as big of a
it's
character.
Not as controversial. What I'm interested in is later on, Pinocchio gets a bit weird when he goes to the weird island with the boys. It's like the Pleasure Island or something, and he like smokes and drinks.
I got to the bit where they were on their way there with the boys, and I was like, I'm struggling to focus.
He kind of, they get turned into donkeys or something, don't they? Like half.
Yeah.
And then he ends up in a whale, like Jonah and the whale.
I kind of missed that. But one funny thing was I was watching it with Christina's sister.
Yeah.
And she was like, I'd heard there's lots of arses in this, and I was like, okay. And like in the first 10 minutes, you get like 3 people like sticking out their arses.
Really?
And you're like, oh, okay. This is weird.
I thought you were doing a donkey. I thought she was doing a donkey joke then, because asses.
No, genuinely, like,
okay.
You get one bit of like, I mean,
did you see Timothy Hanks's butt?
Not like naked, but he's on like, I think it's him. He's on like all fours, like doing stuff, and like his bum up in the air, and you're like very prominent. And Pinocchio as well, is bum up in the air.
What is it with Disney and twerking, eh? What is it?
It's like
they got a real twerk illusion.
Strange. But yeah, I was getting very tired, so I didn't end up finishing it. But I might go back and finish it at some point.
I may watch it. It might be something I'll watch over the weekend, just kind of on the background / doing something else.
Yeah, but how about you? I believe you've got some news for us.
I've got a couple of bits of D23 stuff. I'll skip through because, to be perfectly honest, it's quite disappointing. And I know we just had Comic-Con, and we were talking about it before, and we were kind of hoping, as with many people, there'd be Fantastic Four news, maybe some Mutants news.
Yeah.
None of that. They announced the director of Fantastic Four.
Yeah, I think I saw that.
I think we saw that as Matt Shackman, who's done some WandaVision stuff, and he's also done It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
I think didn't he do a couple episodes of Game of Thrones?
Yes,
like
might have
season
done.
6 or 7.
The Always Sunny thing is interesting because what's he called? The guy who plays Dennis, I've forgotten his name, Glenn Howerton. He's been down for both Mr. Fantastic and Doctor Doom in the past. So potentially there's some working relationship connection there.
Yeah.
I think he'd probably be a really good Doom because he's quite kind of theatrical and...
Yeah, although I did see the rumours of Henry Cavill as Doom, and I was like, I'd really like to see Henry Cavill do a villain.
Yeah,
he's
that
always
would be
like the super clean cut
I think he might be a bit villainous in that Mission Impossible, but I've not seen that one
No,
yet.
I haven't seen it. But
Yeah.
like
Or at least
Superman
like a
and
nemesis, you know,
other stuff, he's always the good guy.
Yeah.
Although the one downside of him being Doom
face.
is his face.
Yeah. And that's why I'm thinking Glenn Howerton, not as recognizable face-wise.
Yeah,
So
and you know, it'd be a waste for us all to go see a film with Henry Cavill in and not be able to see his face for 2 hours.
Beautiful, beautiful face. No. Werewolf by Night got a trailer, which is surprise dropping on October the 7th.
Surprise dropping.
Yeah.
In a few weeks.
Yes. Well, you know, there was no news up to now, and we kind of talked about it before. It's supposedly between a half hour and an hour. We're not really sure where it falls. There was rumors that it was supposed to be an hour and it was cut short because of multiple reasons. But the trailer is done almost as a mix of like 1930s horror films and almost like weird 70s, like kind of schlocky, weird edits and like freeze frames.
Quite a good way to do it, though.
It looks like it's going to be in black and white, which is really interesting.
So it's also the kind of almost in 2022 get around.
Yeah,
like an R rated.
Yeah.
It's make a horror film look like it's from the 20s. It can still be scary,
and you can do black blood. That's because they do green blood for aliens. So if they make the blood not necessarily look super realistic, it is a bit of a way around. It looks like it might have Man Thing in it, who's like kind of like a weird swampy monster who has kind of cosmic-y nature powers. But that looks really interesting. The trailer looks really fun. We had a Secret Invasion trailer, which I watched and looks very much like kind of Winter Soldier-y stuff, which is good fun.
Nice.
I think, Kobe Smulders, Maria Hill's in it, as expected.
Yeah, makes sense.
We've also got
Samuel
L. Jackson, Emilia Clarke's in it, but not very much in the trailer.
Okay.
And Olivia Colman looks like she's going to be some sort of politician, MI something character.
I always love the fact that Olivia Colman has just like blown up.
Yeah.
Because she's always just Peep Show to me.
Peep Show, or like those sketches like Mitchell and Webb sketches, or even earlier than that, the ones what's it called? The one with Martin Freeman in it. I can't remember what it's called, but there was like they were literally like in their early 20s, like post Oxford, Cambridge.
Now this is like Oscar winner.
Yes.
Olivia Colman.
Yeah.
Who is very good in The Father.
Yeah.
Has obviously played the Queen in The Crown to great reviews.
Yeah.
It's like, you mean the woman that David Mitchell married in
the one that was drunk in a ball pit.
She's a great actress. So I'd love to see her in more stuff.
From what I've seen, she's maybe playing like the daughter or granddaughter of a Howling Commando. So they're going to kind of give us some kind of legacy there. Don Cheadle is going to come back for Armor Wars. So they've re-announced Armor Wars because that was missing from slates before.
I wonder if they'll bring Elon Musk back.
They've got, that would be really funny. He's the bad guy. There's casting for like Ironheart and Kei Hu Kwan, who is Short Round and is in Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah.
Butchered the pronunciation, I apologize. He's going to be in Loki season 2, so that's good for him because he's not done very much acting over the last kind of 30, 40 years. I did see a picture
recently of him now with Harrison Ford.
Yeah, and they look much closer in age, don't they, than they did?
Yeah. I wonder if Harrison Ford like recognized him immediately, or he was like, "Hey, it's me, Short Round."
I think that was for D23 because there was Indiana Jones news and trailers. I didn't write anything down, but the new ones I think June next year.
Yeah,
and Phoebe Waller-Bridge is the side character, new lead / whatever. So she'll be doing some action stuff.
Nice.
Maybe a daughter. I think maybe someone said goddaughter or something, whatever that means.
Yeah.
An interesting one is a villain for Captain America New World Order was announced, and it is Tim Blake Nelson as the leader. So from Incredible, when he gets the dripping on his head, they're bringing it back.
Everyone's excited about that back in 2008, and we never saw it again.
We've had Abomination back recently in She-Hulk, so they are solidifying that, which is good fun.
Yeah, okay.
I think the rights...
I do like Tim Blake Nelson.
He's really good.
Well.
I think they're solidifying the rights because the solo rights for Hulk were a bit weird, which is why he's always an extra character.
Isn't it?
I imagine they're going to get that back, which is good fun. The Thunderbolts, which is the team-up film, which is going to end Phase 5, I think.
Right.
That has a lineup, or at least an initial lineup.
Oh, yeah.
Any guesses who it would be?
Red Hulk.
Red Hulk is not there.
Why is Red Hulk not in there?
Probably because the actor died, but they didn't even put Abomination in this poster either.
Oh.
But maybe that's because it will turn out at the end of She-Hulk, he'll join them, and we don't want to spoil his villainous turn yet.
So, I don't know.
We've got Julie Louise-Dreyfus, who is the Seinfeld one, who is recruiting them. We have Yelena, who's Florence Pugh.
Right.
She's front and center. We've got...
she'll probably have a character arc there where she becomes good, won't she?
We've got Evil Captain America. He was also recruited. Wyatt Russell.
Oh, from Falcon and Winter Soldier.
John Carter. What was he called?
John Carter. Isn't that really bad?
He's called US Agent. In this,
yeah.
We've got Bucky is there for some reason. I guess he's like the guy to keep an eye on them. I don't really know.
Right.
Seems a bit silly. We've got Taskmaster, whether that's the same person or not.
Okay.
And we've also got Ghost, the one who kind of got cured by the old wasp woman.
Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yeah. And we got David Harbour as Red Guardian.
Right, so they're not introducing anyone new.
No.
It's just a collection of random people.
And Red Guardian, Black Widow 2, Winter Soldier, US Agent, and Taskmaster all kind of just have the same powers.
Yeah.
It's kind of just Ghost who's got like a bit of a unique kind of
but she
twist
got fixed.
Yes. So I imagine that Zemo will be either like the villain / Joker character of their Suicide Squad. And Abomination's probably going to be.
They are all as well like redeemable villains.
Yeah. I think there was lots of speculation as to whether Justin Hammer, Sam Rockwell, would turn up. I think that could still be on the cards because
is he not likely to do Armor Wars?
He could be in Armor Wars first and then be like, he's been recruited to be the shitty Iron Man of this team.
I always have to see more Sam Rockwell.
Yeah, Sam Rockwell is fantastic. They all came out, all those casts, and they were all on stage going, here, look at this picture of us, a concept art of us all in costume.
Nice.
We've got a couple other bits. Daredevil Born Again. Both Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio came out and were like, we're super excited. They were like,
I'm super excited.
They were like, it's a new thing, so it's not directly following on, which means that they can pick and choose what they want, which makes sense, really. We have Echo. There was some stuff about Echo. Who cares?
As expected.
Andor, moving away from the
Andor started in
stuff.
a couple of weeks, isn't it?
It does. It's the 21st, so it's like next Tuesday, next Wednesday.
The day after. Oh, yeah, it's next Wednesday. It's 2 days after this comes out.
There was a trailer for Mandalorian 3. It doesn't have a date here. Ahsoka cast an older Ezra Bridger.
Oh, now that's interesting.
That's something.
Have they gone with an Indian actor?
They have. Well, they've gone with a gentleman named Iman Esfandi. I don't know what he's been in, and I've just copied and pasted something that
saw a lot of stuff where like casting Ezra Bridger, and there's those like Indian people, and people are like, what makes people think he's Indian? And it's like, he clearly is an Indian guy.
Like he's very clearly not a. I don't know what this gentleman's background is, but he looks exactly as you'd expect Ezra Bridger to look like, which is fantastic.
Nice.
He's worked on some films with Robert Rodriguez, according to this.
I'm trying to remember how Rebels ended with Ezra Bridger.
I never finished the
I feel like he fell into like a time hole.
Yeah, with that blue guy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Who's that blue guy?
Admiral Thrawn.
There is the Tales of the Jedi, which is that animated series that's covering stuff pre-Clone Wars, pre-prequels.
Yeah.
There was a trailer that I watched, looked good.
They've been pumping up the books and comics for the High Republic era.
That's
so I wouldn't be surprised if they.
I think a bit of that is it's got like young Count Dooku and stuff like that. So it's early, but not super early.
High Republic's like 1,000 years or something before the main story. So I imagine in the next few years we might get a TV series or a film even.
And there's some stuff like Willow is getting a sequel. I don't really care about
Willow.
That thing with what's he called, Warwick Davis.
Oh yeah, not Willow Smith.
No, there's like Little Mermaid trailer, which people are reacting well to, which is good, or at least I'm sure some people are reacting well to.
A sequel to Willow 2 where she whips her hair left and right.
Back and forth. Inside Out 2, Hocus Pocus 2, Haunted Mansion, Disenchanted, Mufasa prequel.
I saw that actually. I was like, I don't know how to feel about that. Is it going to be live action or animated?
Yeah, it's prequel to the Jon Favreau one, which I'd never seen.
It was fine.
Elemental, Elio, these are all like animated things. Iwaju, Strange Worlds, Wish, these are all like Disney originals. National Treasure TV series, cool. Peter Pan and Wendy, yep, they're doing that again. The Muppets Mayhem, Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, that's a Marvel animated series.
A lot of stuff we probably won't watch.
The Santa Clauses. So that's
the sequel to the Santa Claus.
I think it's the fourth one of it.
Okay, well I'll watch that.
We got things about the theme park. I showed you that concept art that was like the King Thanos with like all the different multiversal people.
Yeah.
There was a couple of peaks, like you can see Daredevil in his kind of slightly redder version of his Netflix costume.
Yeah.
So I guess that'll show up at some point. And that is everything. They've got number 39 is just nothing on this list. So sorry to peter off a little bit there, but that is
lots to look forward to.
Loads of shit.
And lots of stuff that we will forget about entirely.
And that segment took way longer than I was expecting. I probably should have done a bit more planning.
Let's move into the next thing then.
Yeah, what do you want to go to next?
I say let's split the fantasy series and do one of them first.
Okay.
Shall we do Rings of Power? Because I watched that first.
Cannot remember what happens in that, so let's go.
So third episode, we get Galadriel and
that guy are in that place. It turns out he's the king of the Southlands, and his dad or something was the one who, or his granddad was the one who made the deal with Morgoth. So he's a bit ashamed.
And now we're in Numenor. I think there's a lot more to him.
Yes.
Some people have theorized that he's the Witch King or like the lead Nazgul.
Right, yes.
And that he will be one of the people to accept the rings from Sauron, which
because
I can
he's got
totally
the history
see.
Of,
I think some people theorize that he is Sauron.
Right.
One of the first things he said to Galadriel is like, that's just the name that I'm telling you.
Right.
Halbrand is his name.
Halbrand.
But I think either way, he seems like a fun, interesting character.
Yeah, definitely. We get Isildur, don't we?
Isildur
is young Isildur.
Which seems a bit early in the timeline, but fuck it, I don't care.
When we found out he was Isildur, because they're like, this guy, the captain of the guard, has a son, and then the son's just doing some Navy stuff, and then they're like, Isildur, come over here. And it's like, oh shit.
They do see a bit as well. He looks over and he can hear like whispering, calling out his name.
Yeah. Which plays on the like him, you know.
Yeah.
That implies that we are like maybe 30, 40 years away from the battle that's in the start of the
I think they condensed the timeline heavily, because I think in like book lore it's like another 1,000 years before that battle.
I think the thing is, after that battle, the ring's lost for like 2,000 years, isn't it? Because it gets dropped around for a bit, and then Gollum has it for like 500 years or something. So I
think they're condensing it a bit,
really.
But you know what?
But that means
I'm fine with that.
That means
I'm so fine with that.
That means that the finale of this, because I heard somewhere it's been like set for 5 seasons.
Yeah, it is.
Which means they could like cast him up a little bit, or just age him up for the 5th season.
They could even do like a time jump thing.
And have that last season be like the final battle.
Yeah,
and then it would loop perfectly with. You know.
I do quite like that they're taking it slow, whereas with House of the Dragon is having like yearly time jumps.
Yes.
I quite like that they're just kind of sitting back and being like, we'll let the story develop as it goes.
Yeah.
It's quite nice to play them against each other.
Yeah, and there's certain things like the dwarf situation with Elrond. We didn't get any of this episodes.
Yeah. I enjoyed the bit with the elves and the orcs in the Southlands.
Yeah, that was quite fun. It did make me think.
And the rabid dog thing.
Yeah, the warg it was, wasn't it? Yeah, which looked a little. I mean, obviously they've taken slightly different design cues, which is good because
it's its own thing.
That
was quite cool. And I like
bit...
that guy, the main elf.
Yeah, I like him. Yeah, and all his mates are like now dead, so he's just on his own.
Yeah,
and he's been pulled back down as well. Also, is the Southlands what's going to be Mordor?
Yeah, so
because that bit of the map we see at the end, that's the bit that they have to go through, isn't it?
Is like the mountains around Mordor.
Yes,
and the Southlands don't appear in Lord of the Rings.
I was going to say I didn't recognize.
Mordor.
Yeah, so they are terraforming for Mordor with all that shit, aren't they? Basically, yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah, which is cool, and I like the idea that they're on this mission that's kind of doomed to fail.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we get an introduction of a character at the end of that episode that's like the leader of the orcs. Yeah. I think people are like, this is going to be Sauron. It's like, no, this is just the guy, right? This is like, he might be someone important.
Close look at him.
He looked like he could be like an elf. He could be a weird like orc, but I think he had like long hair. So
I saw another theory actually that like, who is Sauron? Like, could be Halbrand. It could be the meteor guy that fell from the sky. It could be this guy. I saw one theory saying it's all of them.
Right, like a multi...
And then he could combine into Sauron. I saw another theory as well that we don't know everything that's happening set at the same time.
Oh, yeah, of course, like a Westworld shit, right?
Yeah. Or The Witcher did it as well.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And I was like, that would be quite a cool angle as well. Because the Isildur stuff is kind of its own thing at the moment, isn't
because all we know, because we know Galadriel was looking around in the north or whatever, and then she got sent away to Valinor or whatever it was. Yeah. And that could have been
she's on Numenor at the moment.
Yeah.
But it could be that, like, so obviously
they kind of mentioned that the Southlands like needed help, but they didn't say how badly it got.
So we've got the elf in the Southlands kind of trapped by the orcs. It could be a case that Galadriel gets there and it's already Mordor.
Yes, because the implication is that most people got like taken to this prison camp and then some of them escaped on a boat. But why would they have like all gone quite far across to the coast to leave? Like, unless they did that earlier or
But I kind of like that there's many different ways this can play out. Yeah. And I think fundamentally I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
So I didn't
expect to have so much kind of mystery in a Lord of the Rings series. It's not really what Lord of the Rings is, because Lord of the Rings is
it's the classic. Here's your villain. Here's your good guys. Yeah, let's build up.
Because it's a weekly thing, we need that hook and that intrigue to keep you going.
And there's continued mystery around the guy that fell from the sky.
Yes, so he's helping them now, and he's being kind of semi-accepted as part of their little family.
Yeah, because
he's kind of communicating with them a bit more. He said friend with them. Like, he's like relearning stuff.
But I saw somebody said that he may not be relearning. That could just be what baby wizards look like.
Yeah, totally.
He could genuinely just be a baby
because he could have been sent through from a different, because they're from wherever
they're
else.
Like demigods.
They're kind of like the archangels to the god guy, aren't they? And it's times of need being sent down and stuff. It's it could well.
But I did read one thing, and like I said, I don't really mind if the laws changed or anything. Yeah. They mix at time, but in the Second Age, the only wizards on Middle Earth are the two blue wizards who we don't see in Lord of the Rings.
Right.
And like Gandalf, Saruman, Radagast only came down at the start of the Third Age.
Right.
So it would be before them.
Right.
But throw them in there, don't care.
Yeah. I mean, they've only got the rights to certain bits, so they can just play around with it.
Part of me feels like they've created so much mystery around, I think he's being called the Stranger.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
They've put so much mystery around him. If they just say he's one of the blue wizards, it'll be a little disappointing because we don't really know them characters.
Yeah,
I feel like it needs to be like a Gandalf, a Saruman, a Sauron, a significant character that we're aware of if they're building up this mystery.
Yeah, I genuinely have no idea, but
I think it's probably Gandalf.
It makes sense, but also it's so obvious that it would be interesting if it wasn't. Yeah.
A Saruman would be fun.
That would be interesting. I mean, they've cast and kind of costumed him well enough that it could really be anyone.
I think like the main leading theory is Gandalf, but it could just be a red herring because went off. But yeah, I don't know how many episodes season 1
I think it's like 9, maybe. I can look it up quickly.
I was also going to look it up. Rings of Power.
I don't see anything immediately. Not 8.
8. Okay. So I imagine it's going to have to start kicking in properly soon.
Yes.
Because next episode will be halfway through.
Yes. All episodes have started with the letter A so far, which is interesting. A Shadow of the Past, Adrift, Adar. I don't know if that's going to mean anything.
Oh, I like it when people do things like that.
Yeah. Do you remember the Breaking Bad one where it's like 747 down over ABQ? It was like all the...
Yeah, exactly. So cool. And maybe like all of episodes in season 2 will begin with B.
And they're going to do 26 seasons, baby.
I'm well on board with it.
Cool.
I'm enjoying the characters. I'm enjoying all the mystery stuff. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this weekend when I can watch episode 4.
Yeah, me too. So back to Marvel.
Yeah, so last week we didn't get the chance to talk about She-Hulk 3.
No.
Partly because I hadn't seen it.
Yes.
And partly because time constraints.
Yes.
But we had the 2 episodes. One where she's Abomination's lawyer.
Yeah, and she basically gets him off.
Yeah, and one
She-Hulk gets Abomination off.
Has an appearance. I love the way she turned on the camera and was like, I know you were waiting for one. I was like, how did she know? And then the 4th episode,
and when he gets
Donny Blaze episode. So we'll cover those 2.
Yeah, with the end of the Abomination episode where they're like, actually, Wong, you need to stay because you broke some laws. He's like, bye. He just portals out of there.
I loved at the end of the 2nd episode where he's just hanging out with Addison with a Y, but not what you'd expect.
I thought she was really good. I thought she was really funny, and their little like friendship relationship was really good.
Yeah, I did think when she was brought in to be a witness at a court case, I was like, I'm sure that's not how this works at all.
Yeah, surprise
you probably
witness.
Have to sign in.
I'm sure you do. And she comes in with a drink.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were some really funny moments between those 2. I think out of the 2 of these episodes, and pretty much out of all of them, the Donny Blaze episode I think was my favourite so far, just because it felt like a complete story.
See, that's interesting because when I was with you at the weekend,
yes,
Amy was like,
yeah,
episode 4 is shit.
She did say that, yeah. I think she was wrong. I thought it was good. I mean, the one bit that I don't know, I like we're getting these, like, she was going on Tinder as She-Hulk, which is quite like a little funny little thing.
I like the people she was meeting up as well was quite fun.
It's all like a little window into like the MCU day-to-day life kind of thing. I think that is a good world building.
Christina turned to me at one point as well and said, well, Megan Thee Stallion is one like musical artist we know is canon in the MCU.
Yeah, well, that was funny because
I liked it when we saw her in the courtroom.
Yeah. It was a funny, like, it was funny, and I don't think it was like people are like, oh, they ruined it, MCU and all this shit. It's like the whole series is weird and funny and like
it doesn't take itself too seriously.
No, I think that's fine. I do think it's kind of strange they didn't use her more, but I guess she's not an actress. She was probably just there for one day to do 2
I did
bits.
like that kind of plot line of an Asgardians pretending to be other people.
That's, I mean, it's just like weird world building stuff.
Yeah, the fact they brought Jennifer Waters in as a witness to be like, yeah, this guy is a fucking idiot. He totally would think he can date Megan Thee Stallion.
And it's like, then they just had a little like twerk bit at the end. It's like, it's funny. It's just like,
it's casual
silly.
fun.
Yeah.
Like, it's light-hearted fun.
It's one of the episodes' quality themselves. Like, I don't think the story of that one was as good, and like, it's not super like big stakes or engaging in lots of ways, but it's fun and
I think that's really good considering we're watching Rings of Power and House of Dragon at the same time. To be able to stick on a 20-minute MCU, like lay back and have a bit of fun.
Totally, yeah. And the fact, it's 9 episodes. We're on episode 4. It's like 5's coming out in a couple of days.
Yeah,
it will build to something. Even if it's the last 2 episodes, she fights Abomination. I don't, it's
just moving along at a nice we're enjoying the journey.
Yeah, I think I don't. And there was it 3 or was it 2? Like the guys with the Asgardian like tools, and they all ambush her, and she's like, "Did you rob an Asgardian construction worker?" And they're like, "Yeah," because there's someone like wrecking crew or something. They're called. They're like a thing. They're like,
then she just beats them up.
She just beats them up because they're just I'm enjoying it. I mean, to be fair, like some of the criticisms with CGI, you do notice at times she looks a bit like a Sims character, but it's like
there was one bit like I can't remember if it was episode 3 or 4 where she's looking on like social media and loads of comments are like MCU, I'm all superheroes women these days, and I was like, that is fucking brilliant because that's been so much to talk around.
They're so like, I mean, stuff like that they can add at any point, but I feel like they're so aware of where this, like,
I think
they're ahead of the curve in that next episode they'll probably be like, oh, did you think that Ghost Rider was going to turn up when you saw Donny Blaze? It's like, no.
I think so many people in the MCU or who are part of the writers are on like Reddit and Twitter and things like that, so they know what people are saying. And I just thought it was a fun, like, fuck you, cunts who hate women.
I mean, how could they not? Like, it's kind of an integral part of the show that they have to be like, there's a kind of shitty opinion of women superheroes out there.
No, I thought it was
kind of shitty. It's pretty shitty, isn't it? But I'm having good fun with it. I don't think it's like, if someone wasn't into superhero stuff, I wouldn't be like, you have to watch this. Like, it's not like groundbreaking in some ways, but in other ways, it's one of the most refreshing MCU things we've had
just fun.
For a while. Like
I found a lot. It's found similar with Ms. Marvel.
Where
it was kind of more chilled, but I feel like that was more serious.
It was slightly more what you'd expect,
but it was still that kind of casual watching. I feel like this has taken that up a step, and it is just I think obviously the fourth wall stuff contributes to that.
It makes it a bit more like meta,
but Deadpool-y.
I mean, there's bits and pieces that have been kind of leaked or in trailers, but generally speaking, I am really excited to see just where it goes. I don't know who turns up when, or if we'll get some surprise.
Really, even care where the plot goes. I'm just enjoying the episodes as they are.
No, it'd be nice to see where She-Hulk as a character ends up at the end of this. That's what I'm quite interested. And where Mark the Ruffalo, I have my news from ages ago.
Oh yeah, I was listening to like not the last episode, the one before, and you were like, I'm gonna mention this later, and we never got around to it.
So Mark Ruffalo is a 9/11 conspiracy theorist. Fully.
Is he from New York?
I don't know. I don't think he is. He might have spent a lot of time there.
I'm gonna look him. Come on, Gruff.
No, he's from Wisconsin. But yeah, he's like tweeted. Let me just get some 9 stars of being what the Hulk? 9/11 truther Mark Ruffalo testifies to Congress on science. Yeah.
What?
Was invited to testify to Congress on an incredibly important public health topic regarding the intersection of chemistry, toxicology, and epidemiologists. What expertise does he have in these areas? Well, none exactly, but he is a conspiracy theorist. He's a truther. Like,
Mark.
I know, It's just, he was testifying against the Zika outbreak in 2016, and he was saying that, like, there's a lot here, but I heard about it on something recently, and it's just everyone who seems like well-rounded in Hollywood, there's something there.
So I was having a conversation about this the other day with somebody about Leonardo DiCaprio, because he's broken up with his girlfriend again. And obviously his weird thing is that even though he's like 50, he won't date anyone over 25.
Yeah.
And I was saying, like, not to defend it, because I still think it's very weird. For somebody that's been like an A-lister for 30 years, the fact that his weird thing is that he dates women between 21 and 25 could be so much worse.
And it's like, there's lots of people who do that, but it's just not like a meme about it.
Yeah, like he's what he's doing is weird, but it's completely legal.
Yeah.
Like, it's completely legal, but it's just a bit weird. Whereas so many of his peers are either like pedos or like perverts or cannibals.
Pedos and perverts. Yeah, God, yeah. Or all three.
Or all three. How you doing, Army?
Yeah, I mean he was way too
But
like...
yeah, the fact that like his weird thing is still kind of legal, you're like, you know what? For somebody that's been in Hollywood that long, it could have been so much worse.
Yeah. I think otherwise he's quite kind of like left leaning and kind of
he's all kind of environmental
and stuff. I mean, the only thing I can
even though
find,
he's always on a yacht.
In 2007 he said, "I'm baffled by the way all three buildings came down. My first reaction was that buildings don't fall down like that." That's the only thing that's on his Wikipedia page. Right. So I don't know if this has been stretched a little bit. But either way, it's a funny little thing to note about Mark the Ruffalo that doesn't completely ruin it. Like,
no,
you know, everyone's had a bit of a thought about 9/11 at some point, haven't they?
And it was the anniversary very recently.
Yes, it was. Yeah, not long ago at all. That's my secret. I'm always truthing. That wasn't my joke. That was from Reddit. Yeah. But yeah, generally speaking, She-Hulk, good stuff. And we've got one last bit that will take us just over the 2-hour mark there.
House of the Dragon.
House of that Dragon.
So episode 4 was an eventful episode. I watched it before I came here, so obviously I've had a busy week.
Yes. You just watched it just then?
Yeah, well, cool. Not just then, but
just while we were recording. How rude!
Oh yeah. So what did you think? Immediately, so last week I asked you to pick a couple of stuff.
I was like,
a couple of things got thrown out the window. A couple of things have been like, oh, you're kind of on the right line.
I can't remember. The one thing that I did predict was that there would be a romantic entanglement between Rhaenyra and Kristen Cole.
Yeah,
and that was true.
Yeah,
but it wasn't her first choice in some way. That was something that there had been vibes going on, but I thought it was just like weird
last week
vibes.
You said they were building up to a fight between Rhaenyra and Daemon, and that was going to be the big kind of collision.
It doesn't mean that that's not going to happen.
No, of course.
But I mean, I was not expecting, even when they went in the brothel, I was like, right, he's gonna like set her up with someone or watch him have sex or something.
Although I've seen some things like, so they didn't actually have sex.
No,
he stopped and left, but he had previously been spotted in a brothel with the whole air of a day thing.
Yeah,
and when they went in there, he removed her hat so she could see her long silver hair.
Well, he was
and he only kind of went away when she started to enjoy it.
Yes. So maybe he didn't expect it to
also
get anywhere at all.
He was doing it
he knew there were spies there. Yeah.
Spies, so then he could be like, yo, bruv, let me marry your daughter.
Yes. And even if that hadn't worked, it would potentially disair her, which is almost where it was going at one point. You know, it seemed like the king was going to be like, no, you're a slut. Get out of here.
I found it. So the sex scene with Kristen Cole.
Yes.
At first, I was like, he fucking takes ages to get out that arm.
Yeah, that's what we were saying.
And also, like the whole time he's standing there, like looking at the door, being like, "Oh, I should be standing guard."
It was really funny when she just comes back and he's just like, "Fuck's sake, I've been standing up here for hours and you weren't even in there."
That was funny, but also I feel like in episode 1, was it episode 1 or episode 2, where we saw, it was episode 1 where we saw the cut between the jousting and the C-section.
Yes,
being two similar but very different things.
Yeah.
That the kind of really
between the
impassioned sex scene compared to Viserys and Alicent having like the worst sex ever according to her face.
Yeah, and she's just like dissociating from it and has to kind of feign interest for like 5 seconds and then lets away.
I like the fact that those two, Rhaenyra and Alicent, kind of made up a bit.
Yes.
Although she then just lied to her.
She kind of insults her by being like, "Oh, I just don't want to pop out airs till I die." And it's like, "Oh, Sorry, I forgot that's exactly what you're doing.
I feel like Alison became obviously she was already a fairly likable character, but even a far more sympathetic character.
Definitely, yeah.
There's one shot as well where you see her nails have been absolutely torn to shreds. Obviously, the early episodes she was biting her things a bit, so but her fucking nails have gone.
She's just like not happy at all,
anxiety ridden.
Yeah.
And she's got this guy who's like falling apart.
Yeah, literally. You see his back is like all like gangrenous.
But on Viserys, he finally kind of stood up, and he's been such a people pleaser up till now. And like, I liked when Otto was like, "Oh, your daughter was spotted in a brothel," and he was like, "And what?"
Yeah, and he's like, "You need to say what it is."
But I like the fact that he was like, he would have been okay with her going to a brothel.
Yes.
It was only when he was like, "She fucked your brother."
Yes.
He's like, "What?"
Yeah.
But then it made me laugh that he finally fired Otto from being hand, who's been manipulating him.
Yes, he has. But he also is like the spy master of the King's Landing.
But it's also funny that the thing that kind of takes him to breaking point is Otto telling him something that actually happened.
Yes, so he's actually
the king should know about and
like
should be concerned
one
about.
Of the first things that he has his own interests, as he said,
Obviously.
and that is something that he should have considered. However many years ago he got married to his Han's daughter,
and then he realized, like, oh wait a minute. Alison was put in there. What?
Whoa. Yeah, no, he's a fucking dumbass. But
I like the fact he finally fired Otto. But then we don't know how, because Otto can't turn against him because.
But he has got the spy network still, and we see that same spy gives money to Damon's girlfriend as well. Yeah. So there's a connection there.
Yeah.
And maybe she's on the pay as well, or maybe who knows.
I also like the bit when Rhaenyra was sneaking back into the castle, and she bumps into the city guard, who's Harwin Strong, and he's like, Rhaenyra. And Harwin Strong may or may not come back into this series.
Okay.
I wouldn't say anything else, but
right. So we
I
know.
was glad that she was like, "Oh, Sir Harwin," and I was like, "Oh."
So he's someone as well who can confirm that she was outside, even though like she came back in without her hat on. So
I also there was one bit that was very fan servicey in the best way.
Okay, yeah.
Which is, you know, when she was having all her suitors come up and the little kid was there.
Oh yeah.
He was a Blackwood.
Yes.
And he's getting a load of shit from the guy who's a Bracken.
Yes.
The Blackwood-Bracken rivalry is so heavily featured in the books.
Oh, is it? Okay,
they just fuck it. So those two were like two different. They ruled the Riverlands at different times before the Targaryens.
Okay.
I think the Blackwoods say that the Brackens tried to usurp them. The Brackens say that they overthrew them. Right. And like throughout the books, they just fucking hate each other. Like whatever one person says, the other one's like, nah, we should do something different. But they're both like loyal to the Tullys.
Right.
So when he was like, oh, I'm whatever Blackwood, I was like, I bet there's a fucking Bracken there to give him shit.
And he just starts shouting. And then he kills him, I guess.
He kills
as well,
him, yeah.
Funny.
I was like that little bit of anyone that knows that's great.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I mean that whole thing. She seems to. Didn't they say? I think there was kind of the implication that she's going to have to just choose someone.
Yeah, well,
we kind of had that at the end of the last one as
says
well,
at the end, you're going to have to marry Laenor Velaryon.
Oh, that's right.
And she's like, fine.
She's like, I'll do
but
it,
you also need to do your duty as king.
Yeah.
And then he goes and fires Otto.
Right, that's right, yeah. And so Damon's now gone again from the seams of things. Yeah, he's been kicked out again.
Sent off.
But now he's not got, well, if Laenor's with him, the sea snake has taken over somewhere, did they say? He's now in the sea or whatever.
Well, they said that they just abandoned the Stepstones. So I assume Corlys Velaryon's just at Driftmark chilling.
But so if his son's married in, it'll hopefully bring him on side.
Bring him back in, yeah.
But then it depends on if he's still got his alliance with Daemon, because now Daemon's gone off.
But it's obviously Laenor was the one who flew in on the dragon at the end, so that's another dragon.
Yeah. If the marriage actually goes through.
Yeah. It's just I like the bit when where the Blackwood kid was like, "I'll protect you." And Bracken was like, "She's got a fucking dragon. Why does she need you?"
He's also like 13 as well.
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, it's still highly
Still
entertaining.
good.
And Joe, I feel like this was in early Game of Thrones. Obviously, there was a whole thing of like, oh, there's so much sex.
Yeah.
But I always felt in early Game of Thrones, the sex always moved the plot along. It was always either a conversation or the people moved the plot along. And then later on, they kind of lost that.
Yeah.
But I feel like this was a sex-heavy episode, but the sex was important.
And we haven't had a lot of sex generally in this series so far.
So like the whole Daemon and Rhaenyra thing.
Yeah.
Create stuff. Rhaenyra and Kristen Cole create stuff.
Yeah.
And then seeing Viserys and Alicent have the worst sex ever is a point.
Did she drink the tea?
We didn't see.
We didn't see.
Brings her the tea.
Yeah.
But it's also kind of
because if she gets married shortly after, she could keep the baby if there is a baby.
Yeah. But it's also kind of confirming that Viserys doesn't really believe her.
No.
Which is funny because she denied sleeping with Daemon and she didn't.
Yeah.
Nobody knows she's slept with Kristen.
That's the funny thing about it. Yeah. It was all very.
She was super horny that night.
Well, that's the funny thing. She just got all like horned up, and then she was like, "There's a guy here who I fancy for years, and he's just there.
Sexy Dornishman standing at my bedroom door,
and he's just fucking It's kind of a sad way for it to end up happening in lots of ways, but he doesn't need to know that part. Although he might have found out the rumor since we don't really. He brings the message to her about speaking to the Queen, but he wouldn't have known the rumor.
In the book, there's a part of it which is like Rhaenyra and Kristen Cole had a night, or nobody knows what happened, whether he turned her away, she turned him away, or none of it ever happened, or it did happen.
Right.
Nobody knows. So I imagine this is that night.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay, so it did happen. Well happened.
Yeah. I also saw that it was an episode that was directed by a woman, and that must have in some way shaped the way that some of the sex scenes were done as well.
That's interesting.
Compared to even the Matt Smith sex scene in like the first episode, it's very, very different ways of showing like sex scenes as well. So,
I also enjoyed the little play.
Yes, that was fun. Whenever they do one of them in like, there's at least one in.
But it's also quite eye-opening that the common folk, aren't in support of having a woman in charge.
No.
I don't think Rhaenyra really realised that.
Yeah.
Rhaenyra, I keep forgetting.
Is it Rhaenyra? Is it Rhaenyra?
Rhaenyra. One of them is the woman who was turned over to not be the queen when Viserys became queen. You know that old woman who was talking to her?
Yeah.
You really should know.
Rhaenyra. I think it's Rhaenyra.
It's Rhaenyra.
Rhaenyra. Okay, yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think because it seems to have a stronger idea of where it's going, and it's a little bit less like all over the place and airy fairy. It feels more driving and narrative driven than Rings of Power.
Yeah.
But they're both interesting in their own ways.
Yeah. I think the next episode may be the time jump.
Right.
Where they have the recasted characters.
Yeah. I think I saw a side by side. It might have been a fan edit.
It's really good casting when
she looks very, very similar.
Because they're aging up Alicent as well.
Yeah, I know who. Yeah, I've seen a couple of the casting bits. Yeah, it's mainly just those two lead women.
Everyone else, because they've gone from like teenagers to.
And we know Fleabag's dad is just going to not have the wig on anymore.
Fleabag's dad, yeah. And everyone else can kind of just stay the same. Obviously, they'll recast the kids as well, like Aegon, who we wasn't in this episode.
No.
We saw as a 2-year-old.
Laenor probably won't get, or maybe will.
He already was.
Yeah, he was recast in between quite vastly from that first episode.
For like 2 years.
I feel like he was young. He was the younger child, and now he's like 25.
Yeah.
But maybe he was the older child. He just didn't.
But we might see him more now.
Yeah. I'm sure he'll be more of a character. But yeah,
I did kind of miss Corlys Velaryon. The fact He's just kind of a fun character.
Yeah, it was cool when they were all doing their like battle plans before Damon went off and did his solo thing.
Yeah,
like his dreads were like fully out, and he was just like
he
fucking
just
warlord
great.
vibes. Like, yeah.
Also, at first when Damon turned up, I was like, "Oh, he's cut his hair off."
Yeah.
Damn. Then after a bit, you're like, "Oh, fuck, he looks so
good."
You're
like that's more like he looks more like Matt Smith. Like,
yeah,
it suits him a little bit.
I saw
more.
somebody say he looks so much more attractive now than when he was a doctor. Because when he was the doctor, the dark hair made you notice he had no eyebrows.
Yeah,
because he's blonde, you
yeah.
don't really notice.
Yeah.
It makes him.
I think they definitely went give him his sexiest hairdo for this episode.
Yeah.
Even though like you don't, it's all in darkness and hoods and.
I do think it's the sexiest Matt Smith's ever seen. Matt Smith's ever been.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
He's just like. Yeah, but yeah, I'm intrigued to see where it goes next.
It really took me by surprise, that scene. I didn't think it was gonna quite go that way. When they were in the brothel together, yeah. Right. I mean, it was kind of a brothel. It was kind of just an orgy house, really, as well, wasn't it? Yeah. But
I thought they were gonna save that for a bit later on in the series, but
okay,
I guess it can move various plot threads along.
So they're moving the timeline around a little bit, aren't they? Or
kind of, but it's kind of hard to gauge because the time jumps. Like this one, it's not explicitly clear how far ahead it was.
Yeah, I mean, how far?
I think the first 4 episodes have covered 4 years so far.
But is it going to be a big time jump, like 5 years?
Maybe
Can't
even
be like
more.
10, surely. That's quite. Anyway, we'll see, won't we? But yeah, so that was episode 4. So it
might be 10 years.
Is it out of 10? So maybe one more young cast and then half and half.
I think the next episodes they're going.
Is it?
Or
Okay.
what the smart move would be to do it during the next episode so people can
like
literally have young Rhaenyra on screen and then cut to a scene.
Because otherwise,
you
might if like
to make
if
it
they look
really
slightly
explicit.
different, people might be like, what?
Yeah,
maybe have like a marriage and then skip ahead 5 years or whatever.
Yeah.
That would make sense, wouldn't it? Yeah.
But yeah, have you got any more predictions for how this is gonna go?
I mean, I'm still going the same as before. I think it's still going to be a rivalry between Rhaenyra and Daemon. I still think there'll be some sort of miscommunication about who's the heir that will lead to, disagreements, or maybe even, I think there's a good chance that maybe she does have the baby and it's Kristen's baby, but is it her new husband's baby? That's a classic thing, the pre-wedding affair that, I mean, if the baby looks, I was gonna say if the baby looks tan, but Laenor's a little bit more tan than Kristen, isn't he? So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I still stick by most of my predictions in the long run. I think I do think that the king will die before the time skip or they'll skip him ahead and he'll look like absolute shit and then die.
Oh, poor Paddy Considine.
I'd love him to be in more of it, but I just don't get the vibe that he's sticking around too long, to be honest.
They do keep showing parts of him getting worse and worse.
I saw those green screen fingers that you talked about. I saw a picture of that, yeah. Quite subtle, but yeah, the kind of mistake that they probably should have realised.
Yeah.
Not as bad as a Starbucks cup, probably.
No.
I just don't know how that happened. Anyway, yeah, that's all my thoughts on Dragon House 4.
I think it's gonna pick up even more in the next few weeks, so we will be here to talk about it.
Oh god, yeah, if we're doing guests for Project October, we better hope they are up to date on all these programs.
Oh shit.
I don't know if anyone
shit.
I don't know if anyone will come on that cares about any of these things, to be honest.
No, I mean, we could also just have them guest for the main part.
Yeah, we could always
have them sit quietly in the corner whilst we do festival projects.
Yeah, just record a quick post thing. Anyway, that is bingo for on-pod discussion there.
Yes, certainly is. And it's also bingo for you mentioning bingo on pod.
That's a bingo.
But yeah, if you enjoyed this episode, hopefully you're looking forward to the final episode of Lazarus as much as we are.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, go on your podcast listening device or app or whatever and give us 5 stars if you haven't already. I know many of you already have, so thank you for that. If you haven't, it'd be great for us.
Yeah.
And also great for you, because that means we can keep on doing this.
Yeah.
If you like it. Also, if you have done it, go pop onto another device, another app.
Yeah, make a new account.
Yeah. But as well as giving 5 stars, telling people about it is the other great way of making sure that we keep doing this and keep getting in those fantastic listeners.
We might never get to the last episode of the Lazarus Project if we don't get enough support. We'll be checking between now and the next episode. And if you haven't done enough of these things that Lewis just mentioned, we'll just leave you hanging. You'll never find out what happened to George and Shiv.
It is also like nice to see that.
God, I forgot we were talking about Lazarus. It felt so long ago.
It is nice to know that we're not just doing this. We're not yelling this without a mic and
into the digital void.
Yeah, it's great knowing that people are listening to the shit we're talking about.
Yeah.
And aside from the ratings, you can talk to us directly. Can't you, Sam?
You can send us an email at theprojectpod@gmail.com. So if you've got any suggestions for projects in the future, if you like Fatal Frame or Project Zero and you want to recommend a specific installment for us to cover,
you remembered the project news.
Do that. Yeah, I don't even have that written down. That's how good my brain is. I can remember things from 2 hours and 14 minutes ago. Just under that, actually. You can also find us on most social medias via the link tree in the episode description, or you can just search for the Project or the Project Pod on most places.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, thank you a lot for listening. Thank you a lot. Thank you. And we will see you very, very shortly for the finale of the Lazarus Project.
Yes. In the meantime, it has been a pleasure to hear you, and I'll hear you next week.
And I'll see you in Numenor?
Sure.
I don't know where that is. I think that's an elf place, isn't it?
It's the place where Galadriel.
Yeah, Numenor. I'll see you in Numenor, bitches.
Yeah.
Bye.
You son of a bitch, George.
Bye.
Bye.